Unit 7 to dispatch. Beginning patrol of Sector 4. Streets are quiet tonight.
Copy that, Unit 7. All clear on your route.
Welcome to Crime Stories for Sleep. Tonight, before the story begins, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from, and what time is it where you are right now? Take a deep breath, settle in, and allow the steady flow of words to guide you into rest. The police station settles into its nighttime rhythm as the last day shift officer pushes through the heavy glass doors, leaving behind the familiar weight of another completed tour. The building exhales slowly, releasing the accumulated tension of 12 hours filled with ringing phones, hurried footsteps, and the constant shuffle of paperwork that defines the daylight hours. Now, in these quiet moments after 10 o'clock, the station transforms into something entirely different. Something softer and more contemplative. Fluorescent lights hum overhead with their steady, almost musical drone, casting pools of pale yellow illumination across empty desks that still hold the faint impressions of the day's activity. Coffee rings mark the surfaces of metal desks, small circles of brown staining that speak to the countless cups consumed during long shifts. Each ring a quiet testament to the human need for warmth and caffeine in the face of endless documentation. The air carries the scent of old paper, that particular smell of documents that have been handled, filed, retrieved, and handled again, creating layers of human contact embedded in the very fibers of each sheet. Detective Morrison's desk sits in the corner near the window, its surface covered with neat stacks of manila folders arranged in a system that makes sense only to him. Each folder contains a story, a collection of facts and observations carefully transcribed in blue ink, the handwriting growing smaller and more cramped as the day progresses. The lamp on his desk remains on, casting a warm circle of light over the topmost file, which lies open to reveal pages of witness statements typed on the department's old manual typewriter. The keys of that machine have been pressed millions of times over the years, each strike leaving its own small impression on the paper, creating a texture that can be felt when fingers trace across the completed pages. The booking area stands empty now, its metal benches reflecting the overhead lights in long, straight lines that seem to stretch toward the holding cells beyond. During the day, these benches see a constant flow of individuals waiting to be processed, but in the night hours, they serve only as silent witnesses to the building's patient breathing. The fingerprint station sits ready with its ink pad dark and waiting, the white cards stacked neatly in their holder, each one prepared to capture the unique patterns that will become part of someone's permanent record. Docked beyond the main desk area, the hallway stretches toward the records room, its linoleum floors polished to a dull shine that reflects the emergency lighting along the baseboards. These lights cast a gentle glow that guides the way even in the deepest hours of night, when only the skeleton crew remains to monitor the radio, traffic, and answer the occasional phone call that breaks the building's peaceful silence. The walls along this corridor are painted in that particular shade of institutional green that seems to absorb sound, creating a hushed atmosphere that encourages quiet conversation and thoughtful reflection. The radio dispatcher station occupies a small room off the main area, its equipment arranged with military precision across a desk that faces multiple monitors displaying the city's grid system. Red dots move slowly across the screens, each one representing a patrol unit making its way through empty streets, checking businesses, responding to the occasional call that brings brief activity to the otherwise calm night. The dispatcher's chair is worn smooth from years of use, its cushion molded to accommodate the long hours of sitting and listening that define this particular role in the department's hierarchy. Filing cabinets line the walls throughout the building, their metal drawers containing thousands upon thousands of reports, each one telling part of a larger story about the community the station serves. These cabinets stand like silent sentinels, their locks securing the accumulated documentation of human behavior, both criminal and heroic, that passes through the station on any given day. The handles of these drawers show the wear patterns of countless hands pulling them open and pushing them closed. The metal polished smooth where fingers have gripped and released, gripped and released. In the endless cycle of storing and retrieving information, Officer Chun's desk holds a small plant, a hardy succulent that somehow thrives under the artificial lighting. Its thick leaves storing water for the long periods when the building empties and no one remains to tend to such details. The plant sits in a simple ceramic pot, white with small chips around the rim that speak to its practical use rather than decorative purpose. Near the plant, a photograph shows Officer Chun receiving a commendation. The image slightly faded, but still clear enough to capture the moment of recognition for service above and beyond the normal. Requirements of duty. The evidence locker occupies a secure area behind multiple locked doors. Its shelves holding items that range from the mundane to the extraordinary. Each piece carefully tagged and cataloged according to strict departmental procedures. The room maintains a constant temperature to preserve the integrity of items that may one day be presented in court. The air circulation system humming quietly as it maintains the proper environment for long-term storage. Brown paper bags line the lower shelves, their contents identified only by case numbers written in black marker. Each number corresponding to detailed logs that track every person who has accessed the evidence and every procedure that has been performed upon it. Break room offers a small respite from the formality of the main work areas. Its round table surrounded by mismatched chairs that have been donated or acquired over the years as needs arose and budgets allowed. A coffee maker sits perpetually ready on the counter, its glass pot stained dark brown from the thousands of pots that have been brewed within its heating element. The refrigerator hums quietly in the corner, its surface covered with departmental memos, safety reminders, and the occasional cartoon, clipped from a newspaper and shared for its relevance to police. Work or its simple ability to bring a moment of levity to an ANCU, otherwise serious environment. The shift supervisor's office overlooks the main desk area through windows that allow observation while maintaining the privacy necessary for confidential conversations and administrative tasks. The office contains a larger desk than those in the main area, its surface covered with administrative paperwork that requires signatures, approvals, and the careful consideration that comes with supervisory responsibility. The chair behind this desk shows the wear patterns of long nights spent reviewing reports, making decisions, and providing guidance to officers who face situations that require experience and wisdom to navigate successfully. Night brings a different quality to the building's atmosphere, transforming the bustling energy of daylight hours into something more contemplative and peaceful. The phones ring less frequently, allowing the building to settle into its own rhythm, one measured by the quiet footsteps of officers making their rounds, the soft sound of papers being shuffled and organized, and the distant hum of equipment that never sleeps but operates with the steady reliability that makes modern police work possible. The property room extends beyond the evidence locker, its shelves containing items that have been recovered but not yet claimed, each piece representing someone's loss and the department's commitment to returning what can be returned to its rightful owner. Bicycles hang from hooks along one wall, their various colors and conditions telling stories of transportation, recreation, and sometimes desperate escape attempts that ended in recovery and documentation. Each bicycle bears a tag with a case number and description, the details recorded in the property log that tracks every item from the moment it arrives until the moment it is returned or disposed of, according to legal requirements. Booking camera sits ready in its designated area, its flash mechanism prepared to capture the photographs that become part of permanent records. The height markers on the wall behind the camera position show measurements in both feet and inches, Their black lines painted with precision to ensure accuracy in the documentation that may one day be presented as evidence. The camera itself is a robust model designed for frequent use. Its mechanisms built to withstand the daily operation required in a busy police station. Training manuals occupy a bookshelf near the supervisor's office. Their worn covers indicating frequent consultation by officers seeking to refresh their knowledge or learn new procedures as laws and techniques evolve. These manuals represent the accumulated wisdom of law enforcement, distilled into practical guidance that helps officers make decisions in the field when time is short and consequences are significant. The pages of these books show the wear patterns of serious study, with certain sections marked by the accumulated fingerprints of officers who have returned repeatedly to specific information. The computer terminals scattered throughout the station connect to databases that contain information gathered from across the state and nation. Their screens glowing softly in the dim lighting as they maintain their connections to the vast networks that make modern police work possible. These terminals allow officers to access records, file reports, and communicate with other agencies, creating a web of information sharing that extends the reach of local law enforcement far beyond the boundaries of any single jurisdiction. The holding area maintains its own atmosphere, separate from the main station, but connected by the same commitment to safety and security that defines the entire building. The cells are clean and well maintained. They're concrete and metal construction designed to provide security while meeting the basic human needs of those who must be detained. Each cell contains a simple bench and basic sanitary facilities, the minimum required for humane detention during the processing period that precedes transfer to more permanent facilities. Cleaning supplies are stored in a closet near the rear of the building, their arrangement showing the care taken to maintain the facility in proper condition. Mops, brooms, and buckets sit ready for use, while bottles of cleaning solutions are arranged according to their specific purposes. The maintenance of the building requires constant attention to detail, from the floors that must be cleaned daily to the windows that must remain clear for security and observation purposes. The parking area behind the station provides secure storage for patrol vehicles. Their white and blue paint schemes visible even in the dim lighting provided by security fixtures mounted on tall poles. These vehicles represent the mobile extension of the station's authority, equipped with radios, computers, and emergency equipment that allow officers to respond effectively to calls throughout their assigned areas. Each vehicle is assigned to specific officers who take responsibility for its maintenance and readiness, ensuring that equipment is always available when emergencies arise. The armory occupies a secure room with multiple locks and alarm systems, its contents carefully inventoried and tracked according to strict procedures that account for every weapon and round of ammunition. The room maintains precise records of who has accessed what equipment and when, creating an unbreakable chain of custody that ensures accountability and security. The weapons stored here range from standard sidearms to specialized equipment used in unusual circumstances, each piece maintained in perfect working condition and ready for immediate deployment if needed. Night shift personnel move through the building with the quiet efficiency that comes from long experience in working during hours when most of the world sleeps. Their footsteps create a gentle rhythm on the linoleum floors, a sound that becomes part of the building's nighttime symphony, along with the hum of equipment, the soft whisper of air circulation systems, and the occasional crackle of radio traffic that brings news from the patrol units working the streets. The administrative offices contain the paperwork that keeps the department functioning. From budget documents to personnel files, each piece of paper representing decisions made and actions taken in service of the community. These offices smell faintly of toner and paper, the sense of modern office work that accumulate over time and become part of the building's character. Desk lamps provide pools of warm light for late-night work, their illumination creating intimate spaces within the larger context of the institutional environment. The briefing room stands ready for the morning shift change. Its chairs arranged in neat rows facing the podium, where supervisors will deliver information about overnight events and priorities for the coming day. A whiteboard occupies the wall behind the podium, its surface clean and ready to receive the notes and diagrams that help communicate complex information quickly and effectively. The room's acoustics are designed to carry voices clearly to every seat, ensuring that important information reaches every officer who needs to hear it. Storage closets throughout the building contain the supplies necessary for daily operations, from forms and folders to equipment and replacement parts. These closets are organized with the efficiency that comes from understanding that time spent looking for supplies is time not spent on more important duties. Each item has its designated place, and the system of organization ensures that what is needed can be found quickly. Even during the stress of emergency situations, the station's ventilation system works constantly to maintain air quality throughout the building. Its fans and filters creating a gentle circulation that removes stale air and brings in fresh air from outside. The system operates with the quiet efficiency of well-maintained equipment, its presence noticed only in its absence when breakdowns require temporary adjustments. To maintain comfortable working conditions. Communication equipment occupies a dedicated room where technicians maintain the radios, computers, and telephone systems that connect the station to the outside world. This room contains backup systems and emergency equipment that ensure communication remains possible even during power outages or equipment failures. The importance of reliable communication cannot be overstated in police work, where coordination and information sharing often determine the success or failure of operations. The station's security system monitors every entrance and exit, its cameras and sensors creating a comprehensive record of who enters and leaves the building and when. This system operates continuously, creating digital records that can be reviewed if questions arise about access or activities within the facility. The monitors for this system occupy a dedicated station where personnel can observe activities throughout the building and respond appropriately to any unusual situations. Logs document every repair and upgrade performed on the building and its equipment, creating a historical record that helps guide future decisions about replacement and improvement. These logs show the building's age and the constant care required to keep it functioning at peak efficiency. From replacing light bulbs to upgrading computer systems, every task is recorded with dates, costs, and personnel involved, creating accountability and helping with budget planning. The building's electrical systems have been upgraded over the years to handle the increasing demands of modern equipment, from computers to communication systems to security devices. Emergency generators provide backup power to ensure that critical systems remain operational even during extended power outages. Their diesel engines tested regularly to ensure readiness when needed. Asterisk as the night deepens, the station settles into its quietest period, when only essential personnel remain and the building takes on the peaceful quality that comes with reduced activity and lower lighting levels. This is when the building seems most like what it truly is beneath all the activity and purpose. A structure designed to serve the community's need for safety and order, staffed by individuals who have chosen to work while others sleep, ensuring that protection and response remain available every hour of every day. The walls of the station have absorbed thousands of conversations over the years, from routine briefings to emotional discussions about difficult cases, from celebrations of successful investigations to quiet moments of reflection after tragic events. These walls hold the accumulated experience of the men and women who have worked within them, their dedication and sacrifice becoming part of the building's character and history. Night brings its own challenges and its own rewards to police work. and the station adapts to these different rhythms with the flexibility that comes from years of experience in serving the community. That depends on law enforcement to maintain the order and safety that makes civilized life possible. The building stands ready to respond to whatever the night might bring. Its personnel trained and equipped to handle situations that range from routine to extraordinary. The dispatch center continues its vital work throughout the night, connecting citizens who need help with officers who can provide it, coordinating responses to ensure that resources are deployed efficiently and effectively. The dispatchers who work these late shifts develop a special appreciation for the rhythm of night work, understanding how communities change when most people sleep and how different kinds of emergencies emerge during these quiet hours. Equipment maintenance continues even during the night shift, with personnel checking and servicing the tools and technology that make modern police work possible. From patrol car maintenance to radio repairs, this work ensures that officers have reliable equipment when they need it most. The garage area where this work takes place has its own atmosphere, filled with the sounds and smells of mechanical work, and the satisfaction that comes from keeping complex systems operational. The station's library contains legal references, training materials, and specialized publications that help officers stay current with changing laws and procedures. These books and manuals represent the intellectual foundation of professional law enforcement, providing the knowledge base that supports good decision-making in the field. The library remains available to all personnel, encouraging the continued learning that characterizes the best police officers. Record-keeping requires constant attention to detail, with every report, every piece of evidence, and every interaction documented according to strict standards that ensure accuracy and legal admissibility. The personnel responsible for these records understand that their work, while often invisible to the public, provides the foundation for successful prosecutions and the protection of citizens' rights. The station's heating and cooling systems maintain comfortable working conditions throughout the building. Their operations so reliable that they are noticed only when problems arise. These systems represent significant investments in the comfort and efficiency of personnel, recognizing that good working conditions contribute to job performance and morale. Training facilities within the building allow for ongoing education and skill development, from firearms training to crisis management, ensuring that officers remain prepared for the challenges they may face in the field. These facilities reflect the department's commitment to professional development and the recognition that good training saves lives and prevents problems. The night continues its gentle progression, and the station maintains its steady readiness, staffed by professionals who understand their responsibility to the community they serve. The building itself becomes a symbol of continuity and reliability, standing ready to respond to whatever needs may arise while most of the community sleeps peacefully, trusting in the dedication and competence of those who work through the night to keep them safe. The night shift brings with it a different kind of work, one measured not in sirens and rushing footsteps but in the gentle turning of pages and the soft scratching of pens against paper. The reports that accumulate during the quiet hours tell their stories through careful documentation, each form filled out with the methodical attention to detail that transforms raw events into official records. These documents become part of a larger tapestry of community life, woven together by the patient work of officers who understand that thorough documentation serves justice better than hurried scribbles ever could. Officer Martinez sits at her desk near the window, where the streetlight outside provides additional illumination for the stack of incident reports that require completion before her shift ends. Each report begins with the same basic information, time and date carefully recorded in the upper right corner, followed by the case number that will track this particular incident through whatever legal proceedings may follow. The forms themselves have been refined over years of use, their layout designed to capture essential information in a logical sequence that makes sense to investigators, attorneys, and judges who may review them months or even years later. The first report in Martinez's stack involves a minor traffic accident at the intersection of Maple and 3rd Streets. The kind of incident that happens dozens of times each week but still requires careful documentation to protect all parties involved. The report form guides her through the essential details, beginning with the exact location, recorded not just as an intersection, but with specific measurements from established landmarks that allow the accident to be precisely placed on city maps. Weather conditions at the time are noted, along with road surface conditions, visibility factors, and any temporary circumstances, like construction or special events that might have contributed to the situation. Vehicle information fills several sections of the form. Each car or truck described in detail that goes beyond simple make and model to include year, color, license plate number, and vehicle identification number. Insurance information is carefully transcribed from cards presented by drivers. The policy numbers and company names recorded with precision that ensures no errors will complicate later claim processing. Damage descriptions occupy their own section, with Martinez sketching simple diagrams showing impact points and areas of visible damage. Her drawings supplemented by written descriptions that capture details the sketches cannot fully convey. The witness statement portion of the report requires particular attention, as the accounts of bystanders often provide crucial information about what actually happened in the moments leading up to an incident. Martinez transcribes each statement carefully, using quotation marks to distinguish between direct quotes and her own paraphrasing of witness accounts. The witnesses themselves are identified with full names, addresses, and phone numbers, along with brief descriptions of their positions at the time of the incident, and any factors that might affect the reliability of their observations. Moving through the stack, the next report documents a residential burglary discovered when homeowners returned from a weekend trip to find their back door forced open and several items missing from their living room. The property crime report form follows a different structure than the traffic accident report, beginning with a detailed description of the residence itself, including address, type of construction, security features present, and the method of entry used by the perpetrator. The homeowners provided a list of missing items, each one described with as much detail as possible, including serial numbers for electronic devices, brand names, model numbers, and estimated values for insurance purposes. The burglary report includes a section for describing the condition of the residence when officers first arrived, noting which rooms appeared to have been searched, whether drawers had been pulled out, closets disturbed, or furniture moved during the search for valuable items. Photographs were taken of the forced entry point and areas of disturbance, each photo logged with a number that corresponds to evidence documentation maintained separately from the written report. Fingerprint powder residue on various surfaces indicates where the crime scene technician attempted to lift prints, though the report notes that no usable prints were recovered due to the rough texture of the surfaces involved. The homeowners' statement occupies several paragraphs, describing their weekend trip, the security precautions they typically take when leaving home, and their discovery of the break-in upon their return. Their account includes details about neighbors who might have seen unusual activity, delivery services that visit the area regularly, and any recent service calls or repairs that might have provided information about the home's contents or security features. The report notes that the homeowners plan to install additional security measures and have been provided with crime prevention literature to help them reduce the risk of future incidents. A domestic disturbance report requires different kinds of documentation, focusing on the emotional dynamics between individuals and the potential for ongoing conflict that might require future police intervention. Officer Martinez approaches these reports with particular care, knowing that domestic situations often escalate over time and that thorough initial documentation can provide crucial context for officers. who respond to later incidents involving the same parties. The report begins with basic information about the individuals involved, their relationship to each other, and the nature of the complaint that brought police to the scene. The domestic incident report includes detailed descriptions of the physical condition of all parties when officers arrived, noting any visible injuries, signs of intoxication, or emotional distress that might affect their accounts of what happened. The condition of the residents receives attention as well, with officers documenting any signs of disturbance, broken items, or evidence of physical altercation. Statements from all parties are recorded separately, allowing for comparison of accounts and identification of inconsistencies that might indicate deception or confusion about the sequence of events. Children present during domestic incidents require special documentation, with officers noting their apparent emotional state, any statements they made, and whether protective services need to be contacted. The report includes information about temporary safety plans, such as one party staying elsewhere for the night, restraining orders that might be appropriate, and resources available to help families deal with ongoing conflict. Follow-up recommendations are included in the report, providing guidance for supervisors about whether additional patrols in the area might be beneficial or whether referrals to social services agencies are warranted. The paperwork continues with the shoplifting report from the department store on Main Street, where security cameras captured an individual concealing merchandise and leaving the store without paying. The retail theft report form guides Martinez through the specific legal elements required to establish that a crime occurred, beginning with the store's policy regarding customer checkout procedures and the location of required payment stations. The suspect's actions are described in chronological order, from entering the store through selecting merchandise, concealing items, and exiting without payment. Security video evidence requires its own documentation section, with details about the camera system, recording quality, and timestamps that correspond to the incident timeline. The store security officer who witnessed the incident provides a statement describing what he observed directly and what he saw through the video monitoring system. Merchandise recovery is documented with item descriptions, retail prices, and the condition of items when they were retrieved from the suspect. The store manager's statement includes information about store policy, previous incidents involving the same individual, and the store's intention to pursue prosecution. An automotive vandalism report documents damage to several vehicles parked along Oak Street, where someone used a sharp object to scratch paint and puncture tires during overnight hours. The property damage report requires detailed descriptions of each affected vehicle, including owner information, insurance coverage, and the extent of damage observed. Martinez measures scratch lengths and notes their location on each vehicle, creating diagrams that supplement written descriptions and will help insurance adjusters assess repair costs. The pattern of damage suggests a single perpetrator moving along the street in a specific direction, information that might prove valuable if similar incidents occur in the area. Residents interviewed about possible suspects or unusual activity provide varying accounts, some reporting unfamiliar voices or footsteps during the night, others noting nothing unusual until they discovered the damage in the morning. The report includes recommendations for increased patrol presence in the area and suggests that residents consider installing additional lighting or security cameras to deter future incidents. A noise complaint report documents a dispute between neighbors over loud music played late into the night, a situation that requires careful attention to local ordinances regarding acceptable noise levels and quiet hours. The complaint report begins with the specific ordinance violations that apply to the situation, followed by measurements taken with department sound level equipment to document whether noise levels exceeded legal limits. Statements from both the complainant and the party responsible for the music are included, along with any agreements reached about future noise levels. The noise complaint report includes information about similar complaints in the area, helping to establish whether this incident represents an isolated dispute or part of an ongoing pattern that might require more intensive intervention. Community mediation services are mentioned as a resource for helping neighbors resolve disputes without repeated police involvement, and both parties receive contact information for these services. The report notes that compliance with noise ordinances was achieved through voluntary cooperation rather than citation, though future violations will result in formal enforcement action. A lost property report documents valuable items found in various locations throughout the city, from jewelry discovered in park restrooms to electronic devices left behind at bus stops. The found property report form captures detailed descriptions of each item, including distinguishing marks, serial numbers, and the exact location where items were discovered. Photographs are taken of items with unique characteristics, and these photos are logged with evidence numbers that will allow them to be matched with future theft or loss reports. The found property report includes information about attempts to identify owners through serial number databases, manufacturer records, and community bulletin boards where lost notices might be posted. Items of particular value receive additional security measures during storage, and the report documents chain of custody procedures that ensure items remain secure until they can be returned to rightful owners. The report notes that unclaimed items will eventually be disposed of according to department policy, typically through donation to charitable organizations or public auction after statutory waiting periods expire. A suspicious activity report documents observations of behavior that, while not clearly criminal, raised concerns sufficient to warrant police attention and documentation. These reports require particular care in describing objective observations while avoiding speculation about intent or criminal activity that cannot be proven. The suspicious activity report begins with the exact time and location of observations, followed by detailed descriptions of individuals, vehicles, and behaviors that prompted concern. The behavior described in the suspicious activity report includes individuals photographing government buildings, people asking detailed questions about security procedures, or vehicles parked for extended periods near sensitive facilities. The report documents the response taken by officers, including whether individuals were contacted directly, whether identification was requested, and what explanations were provided for the suspicious behavior. Follow-up recommendations might include sharing information with federal agencies, increasing patrol frequency in the area, or conducting additional investigation if circumstances warrant. A fraud report documents a complex scheme involving fake check transactions at multiple businesses throughout the city, requiring careful coordination with banking institutions and other law enforcement agencies to track the full extent of criminal activity. The fraud report form accommodates the complexity of financial crimes by providing sections for multiple transactions, various account numbers, and detailed timelines that show how the scheme developed over time. Each fraudulent transaction is documented separately with check numbers, amounts, account information, and the businesses where transactions occurred. The fraud investigation report includes statements from business owners who accepted the fraudulent checks, describing the individuals who presented them and any identification or documentation provided during transactions. Bank records are referenced in the report, though actual account information is maintained separately due to privacy regulations. The report notes coordination with other agencies investigating similar crimes, as financial fraud often crosses jurisdictional boundaries and requires multi-agency cooperation to achieve successful prosecution. A vandalism report documents graffiti applied to several buildings in the downtown area, requiring photographs of each location and detailed descriptions of the markings that might help identify the individual responsible. The graffiti vandalism report includes information about cleaning costs, surface damage beyond the applied markings, and any gang-related significance of symbols or text documented at the scene. Property owners provide statements about when they last observed the buildings in undamaged condition, helping to establish a time frame for when the vandalism occurred. The graffiti report includes analysis by officers familiar with local gang activity, noting whether the markings represent territorial claims, threats, or simple vandalism without deeper significance. Previous graffiti incidents in the area are referenced to help establish patterns that might lead to identification of suspects. Property owners receive information about graffiti, removal services, and crime prevention techniques that might reduce the likelihood of repeat incidents. An identity theft report documents the discovery that someone has been using another person's personal information to open credit accounts and make purchases without authorization. The identity theft report form accommodates the complexity of these crimes by providing extensive sections for documenting affected accounts, fraudulent transactions, and steps taken by victims to minimize damage. The victim's statement describes how the theft was discovered, what personal information might have been compromised, and what immediate steps have been taken to protect remaining accounts. The identity theft report includes documentation of coordination with credit reporting agencies, financial institutions, and federal agencies that investigate identity crimes. The victim receives extensive information about additional steps that should be taken to protect their credit and financial accounts, along with contact information for agencies that provide assistance to identity theft victims. The report notes that investigation of identity theft often requires cooperation with agencies in other jurisdictions, as these crimes frequently cross state and national boundaries. A vehicle theft report documents the disappearance of an automobile from a residential driveway, beginning with detailed descriptions of the vehicle, its condition at the time of theft, and any distinguishing features that might aid in recovery. The auto theft report includes information about security features present on the vehicle, such as alarm systems, anti-theft devices, or tracking systems that might assist in location efforts. The owner's statement describes when the vehicle was last seen, who had access to keys, and any recent service or repair work that might have provided information about security systems. The vehicle theft report includes coordination with regional auto theft task forces, and entry of vehicle information into national databases that alert officers throughout the country to watch for the stolen vehicle. Insurance information is documented to facilitate claim processing, and the report notes any personal property that was inside the vehicle at the time of theft. Recovery efforts are documented in the report, including searches of the immediate area and contacts with businesses that might have security cameras covering the theft location. Night shift paperwork continues with reports documenting various quality of life issues that affect community well-being. From abandoned vehicles cluttering residential streets to overgrown properties that create safety hazards. These reports require coordination with various city departments responsible for code enforcement, public works, and health services. Each report documents specific violations observed, previous enforcement actions taken, and current status of efforts to achieve compliance with municipal regulations. The methodical process of completing these reports transforms the raw events of daily life into official records that serve multiple purposes within the justice system. Defense attorneys will review these reports when preparing to represent clients. Prosecutors will use them to establish the elements of criminal cases, and judges will refer to them when making decisions about sentences and restitution. Insurance companies depend on police reports to process claims fairly and efficiently, while community members use crime statistics derived from these reports to make informed decisions about where to live and work. As dawn approaches, Officer Martinez completes the final report in her stack, a comprehensive document that will join thousands of others in the department's filing system. Each report represents hours of careful work, from the initial response to the scene to the detailed documentation that ensures no important details are lost. The reports will be reviewed by supervisors, filed according to established procedures, and maintained as permanent records that may be referenced years into the future when legal proceedings require detailed information about past events. The paperwork that accumulates during night shifts reflects the full spectrum of human behavior, from minor traffic violations to serious crimes that affect community safety. Each report receives the same careful attention to detail, regardless of the perceived importance of the incident it documents. This consistency ensures that when cases go to trial, when insurance claims are processed, or when community crime statistics are compiled, the information available is accurate, complete, and reliable. The reports completed during quiet night hours become building blocks in the larger structure of community safety and justice. They provide the documentation necessary for successful prosecutions, the information needed for effective crime prevention programs, and the statistical foundation for resource allocation decisions that determine how police services are delivered throughout the community. The careful work performed during these quiet hours supports the entire structure of law enforcement and community safety that citizens depend upon but rarely see directly. The archives exist in a world removed from the urgency of active investigations, where time moves differently and the weight of accumulated years settles into every corner like fine dust. Here, beneath the main floors of the police station, rows upon rows of metal shelving stretch into dim distances, each shelf bearing the burden of countless manila folders that hold the documented history of human behavior within the community. The air itself seems thick with memory, carrying the faint scent of aging paper and the metallic tang of old filing cabinets that have stood sentinel over these records for decades. Detective Williams descends the narrow staircase that leads to the archive level, her footsteps echoing softly in the confined space as fluorescent lights flicker to life in response to motion sensors. The lights cast a cool, steady glow over the vast collection of files, illuminating folder tabs that bear dates stretching back through decades of police work. Each folder represents not just a case, but a moment in time when someone's life intersected with the justice system, creating a permanent record that will outlast the individuals involved and serve as testimony to events long after memories fade. The oldest section of the archives occupies the far corner, where files from the 1960s rest in folders that have taken on the brown tinge of advanced age. These early records were typed on manual typewriters using ribbon that has faded to a pale gray, the letters slightly uneven from the mechanical action of keys striking paper through carbon film. The paper itself has become brittle with age, its edges yellowed and sometimes cracked where it has been folded or handled roughly over the years. Detective Williams handles these vintage files with particular care, knowing that the information they contain may be irreplaceable. One folder from 1967 contains a burglary report typed on the department's old letterhead. The police shield embossed at the top, now faded, but still visible as a raised impression in the paper. The typewriter used for this report had a slightly misaligned E key, causing every word containing that letter to show a faint double impression that serves as a signature of the specific machine and operator who created the document. The case involved a break-in at a downtown jewelry store, and the report describes the investigation, using terminology that seems formal and elaborate compared to modern police writing. The jewelry store burglary file contains witness statements handwritten on lined paper, the ink now faded to a light brown that makes some passages difficult to read without careful attention. The handwriting itself tells a story of its time, with careful cursive letters formed by someone educated in penmanship when such skills were considered essential. The witness described seeing a suspicious individual near the store on the evening before the burglary was discovered, providing details about clothing and behavior that were meticulously recorded by the investigating officer. Evidence photographs from the jewelry store case are stored in glassine envelopes within the folder, They're black and white images showing the store interior after the break-in. The photographs have developed a sepia tone with age, giving them an antique quality that transforms what were once stark documentation images into something resembling historical artifacts. Glass display cases shown in the photographs bear the obvious signs of forced entry, with shattered panels and twisted metal frames that speak to the violence of the intrusion. Moving through the decades, Detective Williams examines files from the 1970s, noting how reporting styles evolved to include more systematic approaches to evidence collection and witness interviews. The paper quality improved during this period, with files containing documents that have aged more gracefully, their white backgrounds now cream-colored, but still easily readable. Typewriter technology advanced as well, producing reports with more even letter spacing and clearer impressions that have maintained their legibility through the intervening years. A domestic violence file from 1974 reveals the different approaches to such cases that characterized that era, with reports focusing primarily on immediate circumstances rather than patterns of behavior or victim safety planning that would become standard in later decades. The language used in these reports reflects social attitudes of the time, with terminology that would be considered inappropriate or insensitive by contemporary standards. Despite these limitations, the files document real human suffering and the efforts of officers to respond within the constraints of their training and societal expectations. The filing system itself represents layers of organizational evolution, with different decades employing varying methods for categorizing and storing case files. Early files are arranged purely chronologically, with all cases from a given year filed together, regardless of type or severity. Later organizational schemes introduced categorical divisions, separating property crimes from violent crimes from traffic offenses, creating specialized sections that make research more efficient, but sometimes obscure connections between related cases. Color-coded folder tabs were introduced in the 1980s, with red tabs indicating violent crimes, blue for property crimes, green for traffic offenses, and yellow for miscellaneous incidents. This system created visual patterns along the shelving that make it easier to locate specific types of cases, though the colored tabs have faded over time, with red becoming pink and blue shifting toward gray. The folders themselves show wear patterns that indicate frequency of access, with some files bearing the smooth edges that come from repeated handling, while others remain crisp and sharp, suggesting they have been rarely disturbed since their initial filing. Detective Williams pulls a thick folder from the 1980s section, its contents documenting a complex fraud investigation that spanned several months and involved multiple agencies. The file contains numerous subfolders, each dedicated to different aspects of the investigation, from financial records to witness statements to correspondence with other law enforcement agencies. The paper clips used to organize materials within the folders have left rust stains over the years, creating small brown marks that serve as reminders of time's steady progression. The fraud investigation file includes carbon copies of reports sent to federal agencies. The thin paper characteristic of carbon copy sets now almost transparent with age. These copies were created using manual pressure from typewriter keys, resulting in impressions that vary in darkness depending on the force applied by the typist. Some letters are bold and clear while others are barely visible, creating documents that require careful reading to extract all their information. The carbon paper itself left smudges and streaks that have become part of the document's character, permanent marks that speak to the technology and methods of their time. Bank records within the fraud file are printed on continuous form computer paper, with perforated edges that were removed when the documents were filed. The dot matrix printing characteristic of early computer systems has faded unevenly, with some sections still dark and readable while others have become so light as to be nearly invisible. These records document financial transactions with the precision that computer systems made possible, showing account numbers, transaction amounts, and dates with mechanical accuracy that human record-keeping could never achieve. The investigation notes in the fraud file are handwritten on legal pads, with different officers contributing to the documentation using various pens and pencils that create a visual timeline of the investigation's progress. Blue ballpoint ink predominates in the early sections, transitioning to black ink in later entries with occasional pencil notes that have smudged over time. The handwriting styles reveal the personalities of different investigators, from careful block letters to rapid cursive that becomes increasingly illegible as the pressure of deadlines mounted. Interview transcripts within the fraud file show the evolution of questioning techniques and documentation methods over the course of the investigation. Early interviews were summarized in narrative form, while later sessions were recorded and transcribed, creating verbatim records that capture not just the content of responses, but also the hesitations, corrections, and emotional inflections that characterize human speech under pressure. These transcripts are bound with brass fasteners that have oxidized over time, creating green stains on the paper that surround the metal hardware. Moving deeper into the archives, Detective Williams encounters the climate-controlled section where the most sensitive and historically significant files are stored. The temperature and humidity in this area are carefully regulated to slow the aging process and preserve documents that may need to be referenced decades into the future. The controlled environment creates a sterile atmosphere that contrasts sharply with the musty, lived-in feeling of the general archive areas, emphasizing the special importance of the materials stored within this protected space. A murder case file from 1992 occupies an entire shelf in the climate-controlled section, its multiple volumes documenting every aspect of a complex investigation that ultimately resulted in conviction and closure for the victim's family. The file begins with the initial response reports, typed on computer printers that produced clean, professional-looking documents free from the irregularities that characterized earlier typewriter-produced reports. The paper used for these reports has aged very little, maintaining its white color and structural integrity despite the passage of more than 3 decades. Crime scene photographs in the murder file are stored in acid-free sleeves designed to prevent deterioration, their color images still vibrant and clear despite their age. The photographs document the scene with systematic thoroughness, showing overall views, medium shots, and close-up details that capture every aspect of the physical evidence. The photographers used professional equipment and techniques that produced images of exceptional quality, creating documentation that has retained its evidentiary value through decades of potential legal proceedings. Laboratory reports within the murder file represent the cutting edge of forensic science available in the early 1990s, with DNA analysis just beginning to supplement traditional fingerprint and blood typing methods. These reports are printed on heavy paper stock and bound with covers that bear the laboratory's official seal, giving them an authoritative appearance that reflects the serious scientific work they document. The technical language used in these reports requires specialized knowledge to interpret fully, but their conclusions are stated clearly enough for investigators and attorneys to understand and use effectively. The murder investigation file includes extensive witness statements, each one carefully typed and formatted according to departmental standards that ensure consistency and completeness. Witnesses are identified not just by name, but by their relationship to the case, their opportunity to observe relevant events, and any factors that might affect the reliability of their testimony. The statements reveal the complexity of human memory and perception, with different witnesses providing varying accounts of the same events, requiring investigators to carefully analyze and reconcile conflicting information. Evidence logs within the murder File track hundreds of items collected during the investigation, from physical evidence found at the crime scene to personal belongings of the victim and suspect. Each item is described in detail and assigned a unique identifier that allows it to be tracked through the entire investigation and trial process. The evidence descriptions include not just what each item is, but where it was found, who collected it, and what forensic testing was performed, creating a comprehensive record that ensures accountability and admissibility in court proceedings. Detective Williams moves to a section containing cold case files, investigations that remain open despite the passage of years without resolution. These files carry a different emotional weight than closed cases, representing not just historical records, but active hopes for eventual justice. The folders themselves often show more wear than closed case files, as they are periodically retrieved for review. When new evidence emerges or when advancing forensic techniques offer new possibilities for analysis. One cold case file from the late 1980s documents the disappearance of a local teenager whose fate remains unknown. Despite extensive investigation efforts, the file contains hundreds of pages documenting searches, interviews, and follow-up investigations that continued for years after the initial disappearance. Maps within the file show search areas marked with colored pencils, creating visual records of the systematic efforts to locate any trace of the missing person. Some maps have been refolded so many times that the creases have become permanent white lines across the colored areas. Missing person posters within the cold case file have been preserved in protective sleeves, their images and text still clear despite their age. The posters were distributed throughout the community and surrounding areas, creating a widespread awareness campaign designed to generate tips and information that might lead to resolution. Contact information on the posters reflects telephone numbers and addresses that have long since changed, serving as markers of how much time has passed since the initial investigation. The cold case file includes correspondence with other law enforcement agencies, as missing person investigations often require coordination across multiple jurisdictions. Letters and reports from state and federal agencies are filed chronologically, creating a paper trail that documents the scope and persistence of efforts to solve the case. Some correspondence discusses potential connections to similar cases in other areas, showing how investigators work to identify patterns that might provide new leads or insights. Family correspondence within the cold case file reveals the human impact of unresolved investigations, with letters from relatives asking for updates and offering new information that might prove relevant. These letters are written on personal stationery and show the emotional toll that uncertainty takes on those who love someone who has vanished without explanation. The careful filing of these letters demonstrates the department's commitment to maintaining communication with affected families and treating their concerns with appropriate seriousness. Archives also contain files documenting significant events in the community's history, from natural disasters to civil disturbances to major accidents that required extensive police response. These files often contain materials beyond standard police reports, including newspaper clippings, photographs from multiple sources, and correspondence with emergency management agencies. The comprehensive nature of these files reflects their importance as historical records that document how the community and its law enforcement agencies responded to extraordinary circumstances. A file documenting a major factory fire in the 1970s contains reports from multiple agencies that responded to the incident, creating a comprehensive record of emergency response coordination. The fire department's reports describe their efforts to control the blaze and prevent its spread to adjacent buildings, while police reports document traffic control, evacuation procedures, and investigation into the fire's cause. Environmental agency reports address concerns about toxic smoke and potential groundwater contamination, showing how such incidents require multi-agency cooperation to protect public safety. The factory fire file includes personal accounts from officers who were present during the incident. Their handwritten reports capturing the intensity and confusion of emergency response in an era before modern communication systems and coordination protocols. These accounts reveal the human side of emergency response, describing not just what actions were taken, but how officers felt and reacted when confronted with a large-scale disaster that tested their training and equipment to the limits. Insurance investigation materials within the fire file show how police work intersects with private sector needs for accurate information about significant losses. Insurance investigators worked alongside police investigators to determine the cause of the fire and assess whether any criminal activity was involved. Their reports use technical language specific to insurance and fire investigation, requiring officers to learn specialized terminology and concepts to work effectively with industry professionals. The archives contain special collections of files that document recurring problems or ongoing investigations that spanned multiple years. One such collection focuses on a series of residential burglaries that occurred over several years in the 1990s, with similar methods and target selection suggesting a single perpetrator or group. The collection includes maps showing the geographic distribution of incidents, timeline analyses that reveal patterns in timing and frequency, and comparative analyses of evidence that helped investigators understand the criminal's methods and preferences. The burglary series collection demonstrates how modern investigative techniques evolved to address serial crimes more effectively. Early files in the collection show individual investigations of each incident, while later files document efforts to analyze the crimes collectively and identify patterns that might lead to identification and apprehension of the perpetrator. Computer-generated reports begin appearing in the later files, showing how technology enhanced investigators' ability to manage and analyze large amounts of information. Evidence from the burglary series is documented with increasing sophistication as the investigation progressed, with early reports providing basic descriptions, while later reports include detailed forensic analyses and comparisons. Fingerprint evidence receives particular attention, with charts showing partial prints recovered from multiple scenes and analyses of their similarities and differences. The files document how forensic technology improved over time, allowing more precise comparisons and more confident conclusions about evidence relationships. Detective Williams examines files from the digital transition period of the late 1990s and early 2000s, when police departments began incorporating computer systems into their record keeping, while maintaining traditional paper files as backups. These hybrid files contain both printed computer reports and traditional typewritten documents, creating interesting contrasts in formatting and presentation. The computer-generated reports have consistent formatting and professional appearance, while handwritten additions and corrections show where human judgment and observation supplemented automated systems. The transition period files reveal the challenges departments faced in adapting to new technologies while maintaining their reliability and legal admissibility of their records. Training materials filed with case documents show how officers learn to use new computer systems and integrate technology into their investigative work. Error reports and system problem documentation reveal the growing pains that accompanied technological advancement, showing how departments work to maintain service quality while learning new tools and methods. As Detective Williams concludes her research in the archives, she reflects on the vast accumulation of human experience documented in these files. Each folder represents not just a legal case, but a moment when lives intersected with the justice system, creating permanent records that will outlast the individuals involved. The careful preservation of these documents ensures that future researchers, legal professionals, and community members will have access to accurate information about how their predecessors dealt with the challenges of maintaining safety and order in an ever-changing world. The archives stand as a testament to the dedication of countless officers, investigators, and administrative personnel who understood that thorough documentation serves justice better than incomplete records ever could. Their careful work in creating and maintaining these files provides the foundation for successful prosecutions, accurate crime statistics, and informed policy decisions that continue to benefit the community years and decades after the original events occurred. In the quiet depths of the archives, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of law enforcement professionals, the true importance of careful record keeping becomes clear as both a practical necessity and a sacred trust. The patrol car moves through empty streets with the gentle rhythm of tires rolling over asphalt, its headlights cutting through darkness to illuminate familiar neighborhoods transformed by the absence of daytime activity. Officer Thompson guides the vehicle along routes he has traveled countless times. Each turn and intersection known so well that navigation becomes automatic, allowing his attention to focus on the subtle changes that darkness brings to the community he serves. The radio crackles softly with occasional traffic from other units, creating the quiet background chorus that connects him to colleagues working similar beats throughout the city. Main Street stretches ahead, its storefronts dark except for the security lighting that casts pools of illumination along the sidewalks. The businesses that bustle with activity during daylight hours now stand silent, their windows reflecting the patrol car's headlights as it passes slowly through the commercial district. Each storefront tells its own story through the arrangement of merchandise visible through glass. From clothing displays to electronic equipment, to the simple necessities that serve the community's daily needs. Security cameras mounted above doorways track the patrol car's progress with mechanical precision, their red recording lights blinking steadily as they document the night's activities. The patrol route includes regular checks of business districts, where officers verify that doors remain secure and alarm systems continue functioning properly. Thompson parks the patrol car in front of the hardware store and walks along the row of shops, testing door handles and examining windows for any signs of attempted entry. His flashlight beam reveals the details that daylight makes obvious but darkness conceals. From loose window screens that might indicate tampering to scuff marks around door frames that could suggest someone has attempted unauthorized entry. Each business has its own character during these nighttime inspections, revealed through the way owners have arranged their security measures and prepared their premises for unattended hours. The pharmacy displays only generic merchandise in its windows, with valuable medications secured in safes and locked storage areas invisible from the street. The jewelry store has multiple layers of security, from reinforced glass to motion sensors to direct connections with monitoring, services that provide immediate response to any disturbance. The patrol car continues through residential neighborhoods, where porch lights create scattered points of illumination. Along tree-lined streets, house numbers on mailboxes catch the headlight beams, helping officers navigate areas where street lighting is minimal and addresses can be difficult to locate during emergency responses. Each neighborhood has its own personality, revealed through architectural styles, landscaping choices, and the way residents have adapted their properties for security and convenience. Older neighborhoods feature mature trees that create canopies overhead, their branches forming natural tunnels that diffuse streetlight and create patterns of shadow and illumination. The houses in these areas often show the character that comes with decades of habitation, from well-maintained gardens to additions and modifications that reflect changing family needs over time. Sidewalks in these areas bear the evidence of countless footsteps, with worn paths that show where residents regularly walk and concrete that has been lifted or cracked by tree roots. Growing beneath the surface, newer subdivisions present different characteristics, with wider streets, more uniform architecture, and landscape plans that reflect contemporary preferences for low-maintenance grounds and integrated security features. Street lighting in these areas tends to be more comprehensive, with fixtures that provide even illumination and reduce the dark spaces where criminal activity might be concealed. The houses themselves often feature architectural elements designed to enhance security, from strategic window placement to garage configurations that provide secure parking for residents' vehicles. Asterisk. Thompson drives slowly through apartment complexes where multiple families share common spaces and parking areas. These areas require different kinds of attention during patrol, as the concentration of residents creates both opportunities for community, solidarity, and potential for conflicts that may require police intervention. Parking lots adjacent to apartment buildings show the evidence of dense habitation, with vehicles arranged in patterns that reflect resident schedules and the ongoing negotiation of shared space. The patrol route includes parks and recreational areas that take on different meanings during nighttime hours. Basketball courts that ring with activity during daylight stand empty and silent, their nets swaying gently in night breezes that carry the scent of grass and trees. Playground equipment designed for children's daytime use creates interesting shadow patterns under security lighting, transforming familiar structures into abstract sculptures that define the landscape of night. Park benches positioned along walking paths serve different purposes during evening hours, sometimes providing rest for late-night walkers, but occasionally attracting individuals whose activities require closer attention from patrol officers. Thompson checks these areas routinely, not with suspicion, but with the understanding that public spaces need consistent monitoring to ensure they remain safe and available for legitimate recreational use. The patrol car's spotlight occasionally sweeps across areas where regular headlights cannot provide adequate illumination, revealing details that might otherwise go unnoticed. The powerful beam can illuminate the depths of parking lots, penetrate dense vegetation along walking paths, and reveal activities occurring in areas that appear empty from a distance. The spotlight serves as both an investigative tool and a deterrent, its bright illumination making clear that the area is under observation by law enforcement. Industrial areas present their own unique characteristics during nighttime patrol, with large buildings and extensive parking areas that require systematic checking to ensure security. These areas often operate with minimal lighting to reduce energy costs, creating expanses of shadow that must be carefully examined to ensure no unauthorized activity is occurring. Loading docks and storage areas associated with industrial facilities require particular attention, as they often contain valuable equipment or materials that might attract criminal interest. The patrol car passes through areas where shift workers are beginning or ending their employment periods, creating brief moments of activity in otherwise quiet neighborhoods. Workers walking to or from bus stops or employee parking areas represent the legitimate nighttime activity that officers learn to distinguish from behavior that might warrant closer attention. These interactions remind officers that the community continues functioning even during hours when most residents sleep, with essential services maintained by individuals who work while others rest. Radio traffic provides a constant background connection to other officers working throughout the city, creating awareness of incidents and activities occurring beyond the immediate patrol area. Dispatchers coordinate responses to calls for service while maintaining communication with officers, conducting routine patrol activities. The radio serves as both a lifeline during emergency situations and a source of information about community-wide patterns that individual officers might not otherwise detect. Thompson stops the patrol car near the city park's main entrance, where walking paths extend into darkness beyond the reach of perimeter lighting. The park transforms completely during nighttime hours, with familiar daytime landmarks becoming barely visible shapes that require careful attention to navigate safely. Night sounds emerge that are masked during daytime activities, from the rustle of small animals moving through undergrowth to the distant hum of highway traffic that carries across open spaces. The walking path through the park requires officers to leave their vehicles and conduct Foot patrol to check areas that cannot be adequately observed from the street. Thompson follows the main path with his flashlight, noting benches and pavilions that appear different in darkness than during their daytime use. The beam of his flashlight reveals details about the park's nighttime ecosystem, from nocturnal insects attracted to artificial lighting to evidence of daytime activities left behind by visitors who use the facilities during regular hours. A small pond in the center of the park reflects the beam of Thompson's flashlight, creating ripples of light that spread across the water's surface when disturbed by night breezes or aquatic life. The pond area includes benches positioned to provide scenic views during daylight hours. But these same locations require checking during nighttime, patrol to ensure they are not being used for activities that might disturb other park users or violate local ordinances. The patrol car resumes its journey through commercial areas where late-night businesses maintain operations to serve customers whose schedules extend beyond normal business hours. 24-hour convenience stores create islands of bright lighting in otherwise dark commercial districts, their fluorescent illumination spilling onto parking areas and adjacent sidewalks. These businesses often serve as informal community centers during nighttime hours, providing gathering places for shift workers, late-night travelers, and others whose activities bring them out during hours when most businesses are closed. Gas stations represent another category of nighttime business activity, with self-service pumps that remain operational even when attendant stations are closed. These facilities require regular checking to ensure that automatic systems continue functioning properly and that the areas remain safe for customers who need fuel during overnight hours. Security cameras at gas stations often provide valuable information about activities in the surrounding area, creating resources that officers can use when investigating incidents that occur nearby. The patrol route extends into suburban areas where residential streets wind through, neighborhoods designed around automobile transportation. These areas often feature cul-de-sacs and curved streets that create intimate residential environments, but also present navigation challenges for emergency responders unfamiliar with the layout. Street signs at intersections become crucial reference points during nighttime patrol, their reflective surfaces catching headlight beams to provide clear identification of location and direction. Thompson drives through an area where construction activity has created temporary changes to normal traffic patterns, with barriers and detour signs that require careful attention during nighttime navigation. Construction zones present unique challenges during patrol activities, as changed traffic patterns can create confusion for both officers and residents. While construction equipment and materials may require protection from theft or vandalism during unattended hours, the radio reports an incident several miles away that requires multiple units to respond, briefly increasing the level of activity on the communication channel as officers coordinate their response. Thompson continues his patrol route while monitoring the radio traffic, ready to respond if additional assistance is needed, but maintaining his assigned area coverage unless specifically requested to relocate. This balance between immediate response capability and routine patrol coverage represents one of the ongoing challenges in law enforcement resource allocation. A residential area includes streets where mature trees create natural archways overhead, their branches intertwining to form tunnels that diffuse streetlight and create intimate neighborhood environments. These tree-lined streets represent some of the most attractive residential areas in the city, but they also present visibility challenges during nighttime, patrol due to the reduced lighting that results from natural canopy coverage. Officers must balance appreciation for neighborhood character with practical needs for security and visibility during patrol activities. The patrol car passes a small shopping center where most businesses have closed for the night, but a 24-hour laundromat continues operating with bright, fluorescent lighting that illuminates the interior and adjacent parking area. The laundromat serves customers whose work schedules prevent them from using such facilities during normal business hours. creating legitimate late-night activity that officers learn to recognize and distinguish from suspicious behavior that might warrant investigation. Thompson checks the rear areas of commercial buildings where loading docks and dumpster areas create spaces that are hidden from public view during normal business hours. These areas require particular attention during nighttime patrol, as they provide concealment for activities that might not be immediately visible from public streets. The patrol car spotlight proves especially valuable in these situations, allowing thorough examination of areas that would otherwise remain in shadow. Emergency lighting along major streets creates reliable illumination for patrol activities, with fixtures designed to provide consistent lighting levels even during adverse weather conditions. These lights represent significant municipal investment in public safety infrastructure, ensuring that law enforcement officers can perform their duties effectively regardless of natural lighting conditions. The spacing and intensity of emergency lighting reflects careful planning to balance public safety needs with energy conservation and aesthetic considerations. The patrol route includes areas where late-night pedestrian traffic creates legitimate activity that must be distinguished from behavior that might indicate criminal intent. Individuals walking to or from late-night employment, public transportation stops, or 24-hour businesses represent normal community activity that occurs throughout nighttime hours. Officers develop skills in observing body language, movement patterns, and other indicators that help them assess whether particular situations warrant closer attention. A bridge crossing provides an elevated view of the surrounding area, allowing Thompson to observe activities in multiple neighborhoods simultaneously. The height advantage reveals patterns of lighting, traffic flow, and human activity that are not apparent from street level, creating opportunities for more comprehensive area awareness. Bridge locations often serve as strategic observation points that enhance patrol effectiveness while requiring minimal time investment. The patrol car descends from the bridge into an older commercial area where buildings date from earlier decades and reflect architectural styles that predate modern security design principles. These older buildings often present unique challenges for both business owners and law enforcement, with architectural features that create blind spots, multiple access points, and spaces that require careful attention during security checks. The character of these older commercial areas contributes to community identity while requiring adapted security approaches. Late-night radio traffic includes routine communications between officers and dispatchers, creating a steady background of professional communication that maintains coordination and awareness throughout the patrol shift. Officers report their locations periodically, respond to requests for information, and provide updates about activities in their assigned areas. This communication network ensures that supervisors maintain awareness of patrol activities while allowing individual officers the independence needed for effective area coverage. Thompson parks the patrol car near a small city park where exercise equipment has been installed for public use, the metal apparatus creating geometric silhouettes against the night sky. The exercise area represents community investment in public health and recreation, but it also requires monitoring to ensure that facilities are not damaged or misused during hours when normal supervision is not present. The equipment shows signs of regular use, with wear patterns that indicate community appreciation for these recreational resources. The patrol continues through residential areas where different architectural periods are represented in adjacent neighborhoods, creating interesting contrasts in building styles, lot sizes, and street layouts. Older neighborhoods often feature smaller lots with houses positioned closer to streets, while newer developments typically include larger lots with houses set back from public thoroughfares. These differences reflect changing preferences in residential design and create distinct neighborhood characters that officers learn to recognize and appreciate. Night air carries sounds differently than during daylight hours, with reduced traffic noise allowing other sounds to become more apparent. Thompson listens for unusual noises that might indicate activities requiring investigation. From mechanical sounds that might suggest unauthorized access to buildings, to human voices that might indicate disturbances requiring police intervention. The ability to interpret nighttime sounds becomes an important skill in patrol work, helping officers identify situations that warrant closer attention. The patrol car passes through an area where street lighting has been upgraded with energy-efficient fixtures that provide better illumination while reducing municipal energy costs. The improved lighting enhances visibility for both patrol officers and residents, contributing to community safety while demonstrating responsible resource management. The transition to more efficient lighting represents ongoing municipal efforts to balance public safety needs with environmental and fiscal responsibility. As the patrol shift continues through the quiet hours of early morning, Thompson reflects on the rhythm of nighttime police work and its role in maintaining community safety. The empty streets and sleeping neighborhoods represent the peaceful environment that effective law enforcement helps create and maintain. The steady presence of patrol officers during these quiet hours provides both deterrent effect against criminal activity and rapid response capability for emergencies that may arise when most community members are not available to provide assistance or witness events that occur. The courthouse stands in the pre-dawn darkness, its imposing stone facade bathed in the soft glow of security lighting that casts long shadows across the steps leading to the main entrance. Inside, empty hallways stretch in both directions from the central lobby, their polished marble floors reflecting the minimal lighting that remains on throughout the night. The building holds within its walls the accumulated weight of countless legal proceedings, each courtroom a theater where human drama plays out according to carefully structured rules that have evolved over centuries of jurisprudence. Courtroom 3 occupies the second floor, its heavy wooden doors standing closed but unlocked, revealing the solemn interior that will soon host another day of legal proceedings. The judge's bench dominates the front of the room, elevated above the other furnishings to emphasize the authority and dignity of the judicial office. The chair behind the bench is crafted from dark wood with burgundy leather cushioning that has been worn smooth by years of use, its surface bearing the faint impressions left by countless hours of judicial service. Wooden pews arranged in precise rows face the bench, their design reminiscent of church architecture and reflecting the reverence that courtroom proceedings demand. Each pew bears the subtle marks of use, from small scratches in the wood finish to worn spots on the armrests where countless individuals have gripped them during moments of tension or anxiety. The spacing between rows allows adequate room for observers to stand when the judge enters or leaves the courtroom, following protocols that demonstrate respect for the legal process and the office of the judiciary. The witness stand sits adjacent to the judge's bench, positioned to allow clear sight lines between witnesses, attorneys, jurors, and the presiding judge. The chair in the witness box shows more wear than other courtroom furniture, its seat cushion compressed from the weight of testimony given by thousands of individuals who have taken the oath to tell the truth during legal proceedings. A small microphone mounted on an adjustable arm ensures that testimony can be heard clearly throughout the courtroom and recorded accurately for transcription and appeal purposes. Behind the witness stand, the American flag and state flag hang motionless in the still air, their colors muted in the dim lighting that maintains basic visibility throughout the building during overnight hours. The flags represent the authority under which the court operates, serving as visual reminders of the constitutional principles that govern legal proceedings and the democratic ideals that the justice system serves to protect and uphold. The jury box occupies one side of the courtroom, its 14 chairs arranged in 2 rows to accommodate 12 jurors plus alternates. Each chair is individually numbered with small brass plates that ensure consistent seating arrangements throughout trials that may extend over several days or weeks. The jury box includes a low railing that separates jurors from the general courtroom area, creating a physical boundary that emphasizes their special role in determining facts and rendering verdicts based on evidence presented during trial. Court. Reporter equipment sits ready at a small table, positioned to provide clear sight lines to all. Speakers in the courtroom. The stenographic machine waits silently, its keys designed to capture speech at conversational speeds, through specialized techniques that allow court reporters to create real-time transcripts of proceedings. Backup recording equipment provides additional documentation security, ensuring that accurate records exist for appeal processes and historical reference. The attorney tables face the judge's bench, positioned to allow lawyers to address the court while maintaining visual contact with their clients and the jury. Each table contains built-in electrical outlets for laptop computers and other electronic equipment that modern legal practice requires, while maintaining the traditional appearance that preserves courtroom dignity. The tables show wear patterns that indicate frequent use, with slight depressions in the wood surface where attorneys have leaned forward during intense questioning or passionate arguments. File. Cabinets along the courtroom walls contain documents related to current and recent cases, their contents organized according to strict protocols that ensure confidentiality, while allowing authorized access to necessary materials. Each cabinet bears locks and security measures appropriate to the sensitive nature of legal documents, from plea agreements to sentencing reports to correspondence between attorneys and their clients. The filing system reflects decades of refinement in legal document management, balancing accessibility with security requirements. Evidence displays occupy designated areas where physical exhibits can be presented to juries and witnesses during testimony. These areas include easels for charts and photographs, tables for physical objects, and projection equipment for electronic presentations. The equipment represents the evolution of courtroom technology, accommodating modern presentation methods while maintaining the formal atmosphere that legal proceedings require. Bailiff stations are positioned strategically throughout the courtroom to allow court security officers to maintain order while remaining unobtrusive during normal proceedings. These positions provide clear sight lines to all areas of the courtroom and quick access to exits in case emergency evacuation becomes necessary. The bailiff stations include communication equipment that connects to building security systems and emergency response agencies. Ventilation systems maintain air quality throughout the courtroom during long proceedings that may involve numerous participants and observers. The system operates quietly to avoid interfering with testimony or attorney arguments, while providing sufficient air circulation to maintain comfort during extended trials. Temperature controls allow adjustment for seasonal changes and the varying numbers of people present during different types of proceedings. The corridor outside courtroom 3 stretches in both directions, its walls lined with wooden benches where witnesses, attorneys, and family members wait for proceedings to begin or resume. These benches show the wear patterns of constant use, with armrests polished smooth by countless hands and seat cushions compressed by the weight of individuals who have waited anxiously for their cases to be called. The bench design reflects both functionality and dignity, providing necessary seating while maintaining the formal atmosphere appropriate to a courthouse environment. Bulletin boards along the corridor walls display court schedules, legal notices, and public information required by law to be posted in areas accessible to court users. The boards are updated regularly to reflect changes in scheduling and new legal requirements, creating information resources that help attorneys, defendants, and observers navigate the complex schedule of court proceedings. The information displayed reflects the administrative complexity of managing multiple courtrooms and hundreds of cases simultaneously. Water fountains positioned at regular intervals along the corridor provide Basic amenities for court users who may spend hours waiting for proceedings to begin or resume. The fountains are maintained according to strict health standards and replaced periodically to ensure reliable operation and sanitary conditions. Their placement reflects consideration for the needs of elderly and disabled court users who may have difficulty traveling long distances within the building. Restroom facilities adjacent to the courtroom area include accommodations for disabled users and family changing areas that recognize the diverse needs of court participants. These facilities are maintained to high standards of cleanliness and functionality, reflecting the court's commitment to providing dignified conditions for all individuals who participate in legal proceedings. Security considerations require that restroom areas be monitored while respecting privacy rights of users. The law library occupies a separate section of the courthouse. Its shelves filled with legal references, case law compilations, and statutory materials that attorneys and judges consult during case preparation and decision-making. The library maintains both print and electronic resources, acknowledging that legal research increasingly relies on digital databases, while preserving traditional materials that remain valuable for historical research and comprehensive case analysis. Reading tables in the law library provide workspace for attorneys conducting research, with each table equipped with electrical outlets and adequate lighting for extended study sessions. The tables show evidence of heavy use, with slight impressions in their surfaces where legal pads have been placed, and ink stains from pens that have leaked during intensive note-taking sessions. Comfortable chairs around each table recognize that legal research often requires many hours of sustained concentration. Computer terminals throughout the law library provide access to legal databases and research tools that have revolutionized legal practice over the past decades. The terminals are positioned to allow privacy for confidential research while maintaining sight lines that library staff can monitor to ensure appropriate use of resources. High-speed internet connections support complex legal research that may require accessing multiple databases simultaneously. The jury assembly room occupies a large area designed to accommodate potential jurors during selection processes and deliberations. Comfortable seating arrangements reflect recognition that jury service may require extended periods of waiting and discussion. The room includes amenities such as coffee facilities, reading materials, and television for use during appropriate times. Acknowledging that jury service represents a significant civic commitment that deserves reasonable comfort provisions. Deliberation rooms adjacent to each courtroom provide private spaces where juries can discuss cases and reach verdicts without outside interference. These rooms are soundproofed to ensure confidentiality and equipped with tables and chairs, sufficient for 12 jurors plus alternates. Whiteboards and flip charts allow jurors to organize their thoughts and track their discussions during complex cases that involve multiple charges or defendants. The chambers of Judge Harrison occupy a suite of offices behind Courtroom 3, providing private workspace where judicial business is conducted away from public observation. The judge's private office contains law books, case files, and computer equipment necessary for research and decision-making. A conference table allows meetings with attorneys to discuss procedural matters and scheduling issues that do not require formal courtroom proceedings. Judicial law clerks work in offices adjacent to the judge's chambers, conducting legal research and drafting documents that support judicial decision-making. These offices contain extensive legal libraries and computer resources that allow clerks to investigate complex legal questions and prepare memoranda that help judges understand the implications of their decisions. The work of law clerks represents an essential but largely invisible component of the judicial process. The court administrator's office manages the complex scheduling and administrative tasks required to keep multiple courtrooms operating efficiently. Staff members coordinate witness schedules, manage evidence storage, and ensure that all participants in legal proceedings receive proper notification of hearing dates and procedural requirements. The administrative office serves as the operational center that makes courtroom proceedings possible. Case files are stored in secure areas with controlled access, ensuring that confidential information remains protected while allowing authorized access by attorneys, judges, and court staff. The filing system accommodates both active cases requiring frequent access and archived cases that must be preserved for appeal purposes and historical reference. Climate control systems protect paper documents from deterioration, while digital backup systems provide additional security for electronic records. Security systems throughout the courthouse include metal detectors at public entrances, surveillance cameras in public areas, and communication systems that allow rapid response to emergency situations. These systems reflect the unfortunate reality that courthouses can become targets for individuals who are dissatisfied with legal proceedings or who wish to disrupt the administration of justice. Security measures are designed to protect all courthouse users while maintaining the open access that democratic legal systems require. The holding area adjacent to the courtrooms provides secure space for defendants who are in custody during their proceedings. These areas meet constitutional requirements for humane treatment while ensuring security during transportation to and from courtroom appearances. The holding areas include basic amenities and communication systems that allow defendants to consult with their attorneys before and during proceedings. Victim services offices provide support and information to individuals who have been harmed by criminal activity and are participating in legal proceedings. These offices offer both practical assistance, such as help with transportation and scheduling, and emotional support to help victims navigate the often confusing and intimidating process of participating in criminal trials. The Victim Services Program reflects growing recognition of victims' rights and needs within the justice system. The courthouse cafeteria operates during normal business hours to serve the needs of court staff, attorneys, and other courthouse users who may spend entire days in the building during extended proceedings. The cafeteria provides basic meal services at reasonable prices, recognizing that courthouse users may have limited opportunities to leave the building for meals during trial days. Vending machines provide beverages and snacks during evening hours when the cafeteria is closed. Public defender offices within the courthouse provide legal representation for defendants who cannot afford private attorneys. These offices handle large caseloads with limited resources, requiring efficient case management and prioritization to ensure that all defendants receive constitutionally adequate representation. The Public Defender Program represents society's commitment to equal justice under law, regardless of economic status. The prosecutor's office coordinates with law enforcement agencies to prepare cases for trial and ensure that criminal charges are supported by adequate evidence and proper legal procedures. Prosecutors work closely with police, investigators to understand case facts and identify witnesses who can provide testimony necessary for successful prosecution. The prosecutor's office serves as the legal representative of the community in criminal proceedings. Mediation rooms provide alternative spaces for resolving disputes without formal trial proceedings. These rooms are designed to create comfortable, non-threatening environments where parties can discuss their differences with the assistance of trained mediators. The mediation program reflects recognition that many disputes can be resolved more efficiently and satisfactorily through collaborative discussion than many disputes can be resolved more efficiently and satisfactorily through collaborative discussion than through adversarial trial proceedings. The courthouse rotunda serves as a gathering space and architectural centerpiece that reflects the dignity and importance of the judicial process. Historical displays along the rotunda walls document the development of the local legal system and honor individuals who have contributed to the administration of justice. The rotunda design creates an impressive entrance that reminds visitors of the Significance of legal proceedings and the importance of justice in democratic society. Emergency procedures posted throughout the courthouse provide guidance for responding to various crisis situations, from medical emergencies to security threats to natural disasters. These procedures reflect careful planning to protect courthouse users while maintaining essential judicial functions during emergency situations. Regular drills ensure that courthouse staff are prepared to implement emergency procedures effectively when necessary. The courthouse operates according to schedules that accommodate the complex coordination required for criminal and civil proceedings, with different courtrooms handling different types of cases simultaneously. Master scheduling systems track thousands of hearings, trials, and administrative proceedings, ensuring that all participants receive proper notification and that courtroom resources are used efficiently. The scheduling complexity reflects the volume of legal business that modern courts must process. As dawn approaches, the courthouse prepares for another day of legal proceedings that will continue the endless process of resolving disputes, determining guilt or innocence, and upholding the rule of law that makes civilized society possible. The empty courtrooms and quiet corridors await the return of attorneys, defendants, witnesses, and court staff who will breathe life into the formal structures and procedures that constitute the justice system. In these moments of quiet preparation, the courthouse stands as a monument to society's commitment to resolving conflicts through reason, evidence, and law rather than through violence or arbitrary power. The evidence storage facility extends beneath the main police building. Its reinforced concrete walls and controlled environment, protecting thousands of items that tell the stories of human behavior captured in moments of investigation and legal scrutiny. Detective Rodriguez walks through the secure entrance, her identification badge triggering electronic locks that grant access to areas where physical evidence waits in organized silence. Each piece carefully cataloged and preserved according to strict protocols that ensure integrity and legal admissibility. The air circulation system maintains precise temperature and humidity levels, creating an atmosphere that slows deterioration and preserves the physical characteristics that make evidence valuable for prosecution and defense alike. Row upon row of steel shelving extends into the distance, each shelf bearing items enclosed in evidence bags, boxes, and specialized containers designed to protect their contents while allowing identification through clear labeling systems. Evidence tags flutter gently in the circulated air, their strings and seals indicating the chain of custody that tracks every person who has handled each item. Since its collection at crime scenes or surrender by individuals involved in legal proceedings, the fluorescent lighting provides even illumination throughout the storage areas, eliminating shadows that might conceal important details. During evidence examination or inventory procedures, a cardboard box marked with case number 201904567 sits on the nearest shelf. Its exterior bearing multiple evidence seals and the signatures of officers who collected its contents during a residential burglary investigation. Inside the box, wrapped in tissue paper and secured in individual evidence bags, rest several pieces of jewelry recovered from a pawn shop 3 weeks after the original crime. Each piece bears a small evidence tag with detailed descriptions including weight, dimensions, and distinguishing characteristics that allow positive identification by the original owners. The jewelry collection includes a wedding ring engraved with initials and a date from 40 years ago, its gold band showing the wear patterns of daily use and the emotional significance that made its theft particularly devastating for the victims. Beside the wedding ring lies a small diamond necklace, its delicate chain carefully arranged to prevent tangling, and its pendant positioned to avoid contact with other items that might cause scratching or damage. The necklace represents not just monetary value but family history, as it was passed down through 3 generations before being stolen during a break-in that violated the security of the family home. Evidence Photographs document each piece of jewelry as it appeared when recovered, with precise measurements and detailed descriptions that capture characteristics invisible to casual observation. The photographs show enlargements of maker's marks, serial numbers, and unique wear patterns that provide definitive identification. Despite the item's passage through multiple hands during the weeks between theft and recovery, these photographs become part of the permanent record that supports prosecution and ensures that evidence maintains its integrity throughout legal proceedings. Adjacent shelving holds evidence from a vehicle theft investigation, including ignition components that bear the physical marks of forced entry and unauthorized operation. The steering column pieces show clear evidence of tampering, with scratches and gouges that indicate the use of improvised tools to bypass security systems designed to prevent unauthorized vehicle operation. Each component is individually packaged and labeled, preserving not just the physical evidence but also the spatial relationships that help investigators understand the sequence of actions taken during the commission of the crime. A plastic bag contains fabric samples recovered from the stolen vehicle's interior, including fibers that may match clothing worn by the perpetrator during the theft. The fibers are carefully preserved between sheets of archival paper that prevent contamination while allowing forensic examination using microscopic techniques that can determine fabric type, dye composition, and manufacturing characteristics. These seemingly insignificant threads may provide crucial links between suspects and crimes, demonstrating how modern forensic science can extract meaningful information from evidence that previous generations of investigators would have overlooked. The drug evidence section occupies a specially secured area with additional locks and monitoring systems that track access with particular precision due to the sensitive nature of controlled substances. Metal containers with tamper-evident seals hold samples of various illegal drugs seized during arrests and search warrant executions. Each container bearing weight measurements and chemical analysis results that establish the nature and quantity of substances involved in criminal charges. The precise documentation of drug evidence reflects legal requirements for proving possession and distribution, charges that may result in significant penalties for convicted defendants. Laboratory analysis reports accompany each drug sample, documenting chemical composition, purity levels, and comparisons with known drug samples that help investigators understand distribution patterns and supplier relationships. The reports use technical language specific to forensic chemistry, requiring specialized knowledge to interpret fully but providing definitive scientific evidence about the substances involved in criminal cases. These reports represent the intersection of criminal investigation and scientific analysis, creating evidence that meets the high standards required for court presentation. Firearms evidence occupies a separate section with enhanced security measures reflecting the dangerous nature of weapons used in criminal activity. Each firearm is unloaded, with ammunition stored separately and individually cataloged to maintain complete records of weapons and associated materials. The firearms show various conditions, from well-maintained hunting rifles involved in hunting violations to damaged handguns, recovered after being discarded following violent crimes. Each weapon tells its own story through wear patterns, modifications, and physical damage that provide investigators with information about its history and use. Ballistics evidence includes bullets and shell casings recovered from crime scenes, each item carefully preserved to maintain the microscopic markings that allow comparison with test fires from suspected weapons. The markings are invisible to casual observation, but provide unique signatures that forensic experts can analyze to determine whether specific firearms were used in particular crimes. These comparisons require specialized equipment and expertise, representing one of the most sophisticated aspects of modern criminal investigation. the computer evidence section reflects the increasing importance of digital information in contemporary criminal cases. With towers of computer equipment, hard drives, and electronic storage devices that may contain evidence of financial crimes, communications between conspirators, or records of illegal activities conducted online. Each device is carefully documented and preserved to maintain the integrity of digital information that can be easily altered or destroyed if not handled according to strict protocols. Forensic computer analysis requires specialized techniques that allow investigators to recover deleted files, trace internet activities, and extract information from damaged or encrypted storage. Systems.digital evidence preservation involves creating exact copies of hard drives and storage devices while maintaining the original equipment in pristine condition for potential court presentation. The copying process uses specialized equipment that ensures no data is altered during the transfer process, creating forensic images that can be analyzed without risking damage to original evidence. These procedures reflect the unique challenges of digital evidence, which can be easily modified, but also contains vast amounts of information that may be relevant to criminal investigations. Blood evidence storage requires particular attention to preservation techniques that maintain DNA integrity while preventing contamination that could compromise laboratory analysis. Dried blood samples are stored in paper containers that allow air circulation while protecting samples from external contamination, following protocols developed through decades of forensic science research. Each blood sample is accompanied by documentation describing its collection location, collection methods, and chain of custody that ensures reliability for DNA comparison and identification. Purposes: the DNA analysis process creates genetic profiles that can be compared with suspect samples or entered into databases that may identify perpetrators through matches with previous cases or arrestee samples. The genetic information extracted from blood evidence represents one of the most powerful tools available to modern investigators, providing identification capabilities that can link suspects to crimes even years after the original incidents occurred. The storage and analysis of blood evidence reflects the scientific revolution that has transformed criminal investigation over the past several decades. Document evidence includes handwritten notes, printed materials, and various papers that may contain fingerprints, handwriting samples, or information content relevant to criminal investigations. Paper evidence requires careful preservation to prevent deterioration, while maintaining the physical characteristics that allow forensic analysis of ink composition. Paper type and impression evidence from writing instruments. Documents are stored in acid-free folders and climate-controlled conditions that slow the aging. Process and preserve evidence for potential court presentation years into the future. Handwriting analysis involves comparing questioned documents with known samples of suspects' writing to determine authorship of threatening letters, forged checks, or other documents involved in criminal activity. The analysis requires specialized training to identify the unique characteristics that distinguish individual handwriting styles and detect attempts to disguise natural writing patterns. Document examination represents one of the oldest forensic disciplines, with techniques refined over more than a century of scientific development and court application. Textile evidence includes clothing items that may bear traces of gunshot residue, blood spatter, or other physical evidence that connects garments to criminal activities. Each piece of clothing is carefully documented photographically before being stored in paper bags that allow air circulation while preventing contamination from other evidence items. The analysis of textile evidence can reveal information about the distance of gunshots, the direction of blood spatter, and the presence of trace materials that may link suspects to crime. Seams fiber analysis examines individual threads and fabric pieces that may have been transferred between perpetrators and victims or between individuals, and crime scene locations. The microscopic examination of fibers can determine fabric type, dye composition, and manufacturing characteristics that allow comparison with known samples from suspects' clothing or crime scene materials. Fiber evidence often provides subtle but compelling links between suspects and crimes, demonstrating how careful scientific analysis can extract meaningful information from seemingly insignificant physical traces. Tool mark evidence includes items that bear impressions from tools used during criminal activities, from pry bars used in burglaries to cutting instruments used to defeat security systems. The microscopic examination of tool marks can determine the type of tool used and sometimes identify specific tools through unique wear patterns and manufacturing characteristics that create distinctive markings. Tool mark analysis requires specialized training and equipment to detect and interpret the microscopic details that distinguish one tool from another. The tire impression evidence section contains casts and photographs of tire tracks recovered from crime scenes, each impression carefully documented and preserved to allow comparison with tires from suspect vehicles. Tire impressions can provide information about vehicle type, tire brand and size, and unique wear patterns that may identify specific vehicles involved in criminal activity. The analysis of tire evidence requires understanding of tire construction, wear patterns, and the physical factors that affect impression formation. In various soil and weather conditions. Footwear impression evidence includes casts and photographs of shoe and boot prints that may link suspects to crime scenes through comparison with footwear seized during arrests or searches. Each impression is carefully documented with photographs that show overall patterns and detailed images that capture unique wear characteristics, damage patterns, and foreign materials embedded in shoe soles. The comparison of footwear impressions requires understanding of shoe construction, wear patterns, and the factors that affect impression quality in different surfaces and conditions. Glass evidence from broken windows, vehicle headlights, and other sources is carefully collected and preserved to allow comparison with glass fragments found on suspects' clothing or in their vehicles. Glass analysis can determine the type of glass, its manufacturing characteristics, and sometimes the direction and force of impact that caused breakage. The examination of glass evidence requires understanding of glass composition, fracture patterns, and the physical properties that distinguish different types of glass products. Paint evidence includes chips and smears recovered from vehicles involved in hit-and-run accidents, tools used in burglaries, and surfaces damaged during criminal activities. Paint analysis can determine the number of paint layers, color composition, and manufacturing characteristics that allow comparison with known samples from suspect vehicles or tools. The examination of paint evidence requires specialized techniques to analyze microscopic samples and determine chemical composition without destroying evidence needed for court presentation. The arson evidence section contains materials recovered from fire scenes that may provide information about the cause and origin of suspicious fires. Evidence includes accelerant residues, electrical components, and debris samples that undergo laboratory analysis to determine whether fires were intentionally set and what materials were used to start or spread flames. Arson investigation requires understanding of fire behavior, building construction, and the chemical analysis techniques used to detect trace amounts of accelerant materials. Explosive evidence includes residues and components recovered from bombing scenes, requiring specialized handling and analysis techniques due to the dangerous nature of explosive materials. The analysis of explosive evidence can determine the type of explosive used, the construction of explosive devices, and sometimes the source of materials used in bomb construction. Explosive evidence analysis requires specialized training and equipment to safely handle potentially dangerous materials while extracting information needed for criminal investigations. Trace evidence encompasses a wide variety of microscopic materials that may be transferred between individuals, objects, and locations during criminal activities. The analysis of trace evidence includes examination of paint chips, glass fragments, fiber samples, soil particles, and other minute materials that may provide links between suspects and crime scenes. Trace evidence analysis represents one of the most scientifically sophisticated aspects of modern forensic investigation, requiring specialized equipment and extensive training to detect and interpret microscopic evidence. The biological evidence section includes various organic materials that may contain DNA, information useful for identifying individuals involved in criminal activities. In addition to blood samples, biological evidence may include saliva traces, skin cells, hair samples, and other materials that can be analyzed to create genetic profiles for comparison purposes. The collection and preservation of biological evidence requires careful attention to prevent contamination and degradation that could compromise DNA analysis results. Quality control procedures ensure that evidence storage and analysis maintain the highest standards of scientific reliability and legal admissibility. Regular audits verify that storage conditions remain appropriate, that chain of custody documentation is complete and accurate, and that analysis procedures follow established protocols. Quality control represents an essential component of forensic science that ensures evidence maintains its integrity and reliability throughout the legal process. As Detective Rodriguez completes her evidence inventory, she reflects on the vast accumulation of physical materials that document human behavior and provide the foundation for justice system operations. Each item in the evidence storage facility represents not just physical evidence, but human stories of crime, investigation, and the pursuit of truth through scientific analysis and careful documentation. The silent rows of shelving hold the physical foundation upon which legal proceedings rest, demonstrating how modern criminal investigation depends on the careful collection, preservation, and analysis of physical evidence that can speak truth long after witnesses forget and memories fade. Asterisk, the correctional facility stands against the night sky like a fortress of rehabilitation and containment. Its exterior walls illuminated by security lighting that creates a perimeter of visibility around the compound. Inside these walls, long corridors stretch through multiple housing units, their polished concrete floors reflecting the dim lighting that provides 24-hour visibility while allowing the gradual transition from day to night that helps maintain natural sleep cycles for the resident population. The architecture speaks to dual purposes of security and humanity, with design elements that prioritize safety while acknowledging the basic needs of individuals who will spend months or years within these walls. Officer Martinez walks the night shift through Key Block, her footsteps creating a steady rhythm on the smooth floor surface as she conducts the regular security rounds that ensure the safety and well-being of both residents and staff. Each cell door bears a number etched into metal plates that have been polished by countless hands over the years, the numbers visible even in the reduced lighting that characterizes nighttime operations. The doors themselves are constructed of heavy steel with small observation windows that allow staff to check on residents without disturbing their rest, balancing security requirements with respect for privacy during sleeping hours. Cell 142 houses an individual serving time for burglary charges. The small space containing the basic furnishings that provide for essential human needs while maintaining the security requirements that define correctional environments. A narrow bed with a thin mattress occupies one wall, its metal frame bolted to the floor to prevent use as a weapon or tool for unauthorized purposes. The mattress itself shows the wear patterns of institutional use, its surface compressed but clean. covered with sheets and a blanket that meet basic comfort requirements, while conforming to safety regulations that prohibit materials that could be used for self-harm or security breaches. A small desk and stool provide workspace for writing letters, reading, or engaging in educational activities that support rehabilitation goals. The desk surface bears the faint marks of previous occupants, small scratches and impressions that speak to the human need for expression and creativity, even in highly controlled environments. Books and magazines are arranged neatly on the desk surface, their presence indicating participation in literacy programs and educational opportunities that help residents develop skills for successful reintegration into community life. The toilet and sink combination unit occupies one corner of the cell, designed for durability and safety while providing essential sanitary facilities. The unit is constructed of stainless steel with rounded edges that eliminate potential weapons while maintaining basic dignity and cleanliness standards. Water temperature is controlled centrally to prevent scalding while ensuring adequate warmth for personal hygiene, reflecting the balance between safety concerns and basic human comfort that characterizes modern correctional design. A small shelf holds personal belongings allowed under facility regulations, including photographs of family members that serve as reminders of relationships and responsibilities that await beyond the prison walls. These photographs represent hope and motivation for behavioral change, connecting residents to the communities they will eventually rejoin and the people who continue to care about their welfare despite their current circumstances. The careful arrangement of these personal items reflects the human need to create some sense of home, even in institutional settings. Across the corridor, Cell 144 houses a resident participating in vocational training programs designed to provide marketable skills that support successful re-entry into the workforce. The cell contains educational materials, including textbooks and workbooks that document progress through structured learning programs. These materials represent investment in human potential and recognition that education and skill development provide more effective long-term public safety benefits than simple punishment and containment. The day room at the end of the corridor provides common space where residents can interact under staff supervision, watch television programming, and participate in group activities that support social development and mental health. During nighttime hours, the day room stands empty and quiet, its tables and chairs arranged neatly for the following day's activities. The television remains dark, its screen reflecting the overhead lighting that maintains visibility throughout the housing unit. Recreational equipment stored in the day room includes board games, playing cards, and books that provide constructive entertainment during leisure hours. These materials are carefully selected to eliminate potential security risks while providing meaningful diversions that help residents cope with the stress and boredom that can characterize institutional life. The availability of recreational materials reflects recognition that mental stimulation and social interaction contribute to successful rehabilitation and reduce institutional tensions. The medical unit occupies a separate section of the facility, providing healthcare services that meet constitutional requirements for adequate medical attention while maintaining security protocols necessary in correctional environments. Medical examination rooms contain standard equipment adapted for institutional use, with security features that prevent the misuse of medical instruments while ensuring that residents receive appropriate care for both routine and emergency health needs. Medication distribution occurs according to strict protocols that ensure residents receive prescribed treatments while preventing diversion or misuse of controlled substances. The medication storage area maintains precise inventory controls and security measures that protect both the medication supply and the individuals who depend on these treatments for their health and well-being. Nurses and medical technicians work closely with security staff to ensure that medical care delivery does not compromise institutional safety. The mental health unit provides counseling and therapy services that address the psychological needs of residents, many of whom have histories of substance abuse, trauma, or mental illness that contributed to their criminal behavior. Individual and group therapy sessions occur in rooms designed to provide confidentiality while maintaining security oversight, creating environments where residents can discuss personal issues and develop coping strategies that support behavioral change and successful community reintegration. Educational classrooms throughout the facility offer academic and vocational instruction that helps residents develop skills and credentials that improve their employment prospects after release. These classrooms contain standard educational equipment adapted for security requirements, including computers, textbooks, and instructional materials that support various levels of academic achievement. Teachers and instructors work within security constraints to provide quality education that addresses individual learning needs and interests. The library provides access to books, magazines, and educational materials that support both recreational reading and academic study. Library materials are carefully screened for security concerns, while maintaining diverse collections that serve various interests and educational levels. The library also provides legal research, materials that allow residents to research their cases and understand their legal rights and options, supporting the constitutional requirement for access to legal information. Vocational workshops provide hands-on training in marketable skills including automotive repair, carpentry, electrical work, and computer technology. These workshops contain professional-grade equipment adapted for institutional use, allowing residents to develop practical skills that translate directly to employment opportunities in the community. Vocational instructors work closely with local employers to ensure that training programs address real workforce needs and provide certifications that employers recognize and value. The dining hall operates according to carefully planned schedules that ensure all residents receive nutritious meals while maintaining security and order during food service operations. Kitchen facilities employ residents in food preparation and service roles that provide work experience and job skills, while reducing operational costs. Food service work assignments are considered desirable positions that require demonstrated good behavior and reliability. Religious services occur at a multi-purpose chapel that accommodates various faith traditions while maintaining security protocols necessary in correctional environments. Religious programming provides spiritual support and moral guidance that many residents find helpful in addressing the personal issues that contributed to their criminal behavior. Chaplains and religious volunteers work within institutional guidelines to provide meaningful spiritual services while respecting the diverse religious backgrounds represented in the resident population. Visiting areas allow residents to maintain family relationships and community connections that support successful reintegration after release. Visiting rooms are designed to allow meaningful interaction while maintaining security oversight, with furnishings and layout that promote positive family visits. Staff supervision ensures that visits proceed appropriately while allowing families the privacy needed for meaningful communication and relationship maintenance. The segregation unit houses residents who require separation from the general population due to disciplinary infractions, security concerns, or protective custody needs. Cells in this unit provide the same basic amenities as general population housing, but with reduced movement and programming opportunities that reflect the special security requirements for these placements. Staff conduct more frequent security checks in segregation areas while ensuring that residents receive appropriate mental health monitoring and basic services. Work assignments throughout the facility provide residents with opportunities to develop job skills while contributing to institutional operations through maintenance, food service, laundry, and clerical work. These assignments offer structured daily activities that help residents develop work habits and responsibility while reducing the idleness that can contribute to institutional problems. Work supervisors provide job training and performance feedback that prepares residents for employment after release. The recreation yard provides outdoor space for physical exercise and recreational activities that support physical and mental health. Exercise equipment and sports facilities allow residents to maintain physical fitness while providing constructive outlets for stress and energy. Recreational programming includes organized sports, leagues and fitness programs that promote healthy competition and teamwork skills. Case management services help residents develop re-entry plans that address housing, employment, education, and treatment needs that must be met for successful community reintegration. Case managers work with residents throughout their sentences to identify resources and develop realistic plans that address individual circumstances and needs. These services recognize that successful reentry requires comprehensive planning and community support. Substance abuse treatment programs address the addiction issues that contribute to criminal behavior for many residents, providing individual and group counseling along with educational programming about addiction and recovery. Treatment programs use evidence-based approaches that have demonstrated effectiveness in reducing recidivism while helping individuals develop the coping skills needed to maintain sobriety after release. Treatment staff work closely with community treatment providers to ensure continuity of care after release. Parenting programs help residents who are parents maintain relationships with their children and develop parenting skills that support family stability after release. These programs recognize that many residents are parents whose criminal behavior has affected their families, and that strengthening family relationships can provide motivation for behavioral change while supporting child welfare. The facility maintains extensive records documenting each resident's progress through programming, behavior, and preparation for release. These records inform decisions about security classification, programming assignments, and release planning while providing documentation of institutional conduct that may be relevant to parole decisions and community supervision planning. Night shift operations require careful attention to security procedures while respecting the sleep needs of the resident population. Security rounds occur at regular intervals to ensure safety and security, while minimizing disruption to residents who are sleeping. Emergency procedures are designed to allow rapid response to medical emergencies, security incidents, or other situations that may arise during overnight hours. Staff training emphasizes both security procedures and human service skills, recognizing that correctional officers serve dual roles as security personnel and human service providers. Training programs address communication skills, conflict resolution, emergency procedures, and understanding of the rehabilitation goals that guide modern correctional practice. Ongoing professional development ensures that staff maintain current knowledge of best practices in correctional management. The facility operates according to policies and procedures designed to ensure constitutional compliance, while maintaining security and supporting rehabilitation goals. These policies address all aspects of institutional operations, from security procedures to medical care to educational programming, creating comprehensive guidelines that protect both resident and staff rights while maintaining safe and orderly operations. As Officer Martinez completes her security rounds, she reflects on the complex mission of modern corrections, which seeks to balance public safety requirements with rehabilitation goals that support successful reintegration of individuals who have violated community standards. The quiet corridors and sleeping residents represent both the consequences of criminal behavior and the hope for redemption and positive change that characterizes the best aspects of contemporary correctional practice. The institutional environment, with its careful balance of security and humanity, reflects society's evolving understanding of effective responses to criminal behavior. While punishment remains an important component of the justice system, the emphasis on education, treatment, and skill development demonstrates recognition that lasting public safety depends on helping individuals address the underlying issues that contribute to criminal behavior and develop the tools needed for law-abiding and productive lives after release. The genealogy of crime unfolds through Manila folders and computer databases, where family names appear and reappear across decades of police records, creating patterns that tell stories of generational struggles, neighborhood changes, and the complex ways that personal history intersects with law enforcement. Detective Susan Chun sits at her desk in the quiet hours before dawn, surrounded by files that span 30 years of departmental records, each folder containing not just individual incidents, but threads in a larger tapestry of community life that reveals itself only through patient examination and careful cross-referencing of names, addresses, and relationships. The Martinez family name appears first in a 1994 traffic violation, a simple speeding ticket issued to Roberto Martinez on Elm Street. The citation typed on the old carbon copy forms that characterized record keeping before computerization changed how police departments managed information. Roberto was 22 then, recently married, working construction jobs that required him to drive across the city each morning before traffic made such travel difficult. The ticket represents a moment in time when his biggest interaction with law enforcement involved paying a fine and attending traffic school. His signature on the citation clear and confident. 5 years later, Roberto Martinez appears again in department records, this time as a witness to a residential burglary that occurred 3 houses down from his own home on Elm Street. His witness statement, handwritten by Officer Patterson during the doorstep interview, describes seeing an unfamiliar van parked outside the victim's house during afternoon hours when most residents were at work. Roberto provided a partial license plate number and description of the individual he observed, carrying items from the house to the vehicle. Information that helped investigators identify and arrest the perpetrator within a week of the incident. The witness statement reveals Roberto's integration into the neighborhood community, his familiarity with neighbors' routines, and his willingness to cooperate with police investigations. His description of events shows careful observation and clear communication, qualities that made his testimony valuable during the eventual trial proceedings. The detective's notes indicate that Roberto was considered a reliable witness whose account matched physical evidence found at the crime scene and corroborated statements from other neighborhood residents. Roberto's wife, Maria Martinez, first appears in police records in 2001 as the complainant in a domestic disturbance call, though the incident report indicates that the disturbance involved neighbors rather than domestic violence within the Martinez household. Maria called police to report loud arguing and sounds of break-in glass from the apartment next door, expressing concern for the welfare of children who lived in the adjoining unit. The responding officers found evidence of domestic violence in the neighboring apartment and made arrests that resulted in protective orders and referrals to family services. Maria's call demonstrates the community responsibility that characterizes stable neighborhoods, where residents look out for each other's welfare and contact authorities when they observe situations that threaten safety or well-being. The report notes that Maria provided her contact information for follow-up questions and expressed willingness to testify if needed to support prosecution efforts. Her cooperation contributed to successful intervention in a domestic violence situation that might otherwise have escalated to more serious harm. The Martinez family name appears more frequently in police records as their children reach adolescence, though most entries involve minor infractions typical of teenage behavior rather than serious criminal activity. In 2008, their son Carlos Martinez, age 16, receives a citation for skateboarding in areas where city ordinances prohibit such activity. The citation was issued in the downtown business district, where skateboarding posed safety risks to pedestrians and potential damage to public property. Carlos appears in records again 6 months later, this time as part of a group of teenagers who were questioned about graffiti found near the high school. While no charges were filed against Carlos specifically, the incident report notes his presence with other students during questioning about vandalism that occurred over a weekend. The investigating officer's notes indicate that Carlos was cooperative during questioning and that his parents were notified of his involvement in the investigation. Reflecting department policy regarding juvenile contacts, the high school connection reveals patterns of adolescent behavior that occupy significant portions of police time and resources. As officers work to address minor infractions while building positive relationships with young people who are learning about community standards and legal responsibilities. The reports involving Carlos and his peers show how police departments balance enforcement with education, using minor incidents as opportunities to teach rather than simply punish. By 2010, Carlos Martinez appears in records as a complainant rather than a subject of investigation, reporting the theft of his bicycle from the high school parking area. The theft report shows his growth toward adult responsibility, as he provides detailed descriptions of the stolen property, cooperates fully with the investigation, and follows up with additional information when he spots the bicycle being ridden by another student several days later. The recovery of the bicycle leads to a juvenile referral rather than formal charges, reflecting the educational approach that characterizes many juvenile cases. The theft report also demonstrates Carlos's positive relationship with law enforcement, as he contacts police promptly when the crime occurs and maintains communication throughout the investigation. This cooperation contrasts with the adversarial relationship that sometimes develops between young people and police, suggesting that the earlier minor contacts with Carlos were handled in ways that built trust rather than creating lasting resentment toward law enforcement. Maria Martinez appears in records again in 2012, this time as a victim of identity theft that resulted in unauthorized credit card charges and attempts to open fraudulent accounts using her personal information. The identity theft report documents the complex process of financial recovery that victims face, including contacts with credit reporting agencies, financial institutions, and federal agencies that investigate such crimes. Maria's case involves multiple agencies and months of follow-up, work to restore her credit and prevent further fraudulent activity. The identity theft investigation reveals how criminal activity increasingly crosses traditional jurisdictional boundaries, requiring cooperation between local police, state agencies, and federal investigators to track perpetrators who use technology to commit crimes against victims in distant locations. Maria's case contributes to a larger investigation involving dozens of victims across multiple states, demonstrating how individual crimes often represent parts of larger criminal enterprises. Roberto Martinez appears in 2013 records as a witness to a traffic accident at the intersection near his workplace, providing crucial testimony about traffic light timing and vehicle speeds that helped investigators determine fault and reconstruct the sequence of events. His witness statement shows the same attention to detail and clear communication that characterized his earlier cooperation with law enforcement, establishing him as someone whose observations could be trusted in legal proceedings. Traffic accident investigation benefits from Roberto's willingness to remain at the scene until police arrived and provide a written statement about what he observed. His account helps resolve disputes between the involved drivers about right-of-way and signal timing, providing objective information that supports fair resolution of insurance claims and potential traffic citations. The investigating officer's notes commend Roberto's public-spirited cooperation and clear recollection of events. Carlos Martinez enters adult records in 2014 when he applies for a security clearance related to his employment with a government contractor, triggering a background investigation that reviews his entire contact history with law enforcement. The background check reveals the minor juvenile citations and investigations, but also documents the positive trajectory of his interactions with police and his development into a responsible adult citizen. The clearance is granted after investigators conclude that his juvenile record reflects normal adolescent behavior rather than concerning patterns. Security clearance investigation demonstrates how early contacts with law enforcement can have long-term implications for employment and other opportunities, emphasizing the importance of handling juvenile cases in ways that allow for growth and rehabilitation rather than creating permanent barriers to legitimate success. Carlos's case shows how positive police interactions during adolescence can contribute to adult respect for law enforcement and community responsibility. In 2015, the Martinez family name appears in records related to community policing efforts, as Roberto volunteers to serve on a neighborhood watch committee that works with police to address quality of life issues in their residential area. The committee meetings are documented in police records as part of community outreach efforts designed to build partnerships between law enforcement and residents in preventing crime and maintaining neighborhood safety. Roberto's volunteer service reflects his evolution from someone who had occasional contact with police to someone who actively supports law enforcement efforts in his community. His participation in Neighborhood Watch demonstrates the community engagement that makes police work more effective while building relationships that benefit both residents and officers. The meeting notes show Roberto's contributions to discussions about traffic safety, lighting improvements, and communication strategies that enhance neighborhood security. Maria Martinez appears in 2016 records as a complainant in a fraud case involving door-to-door sales representatives who collected payment for home improvement work that was never performed. Her complaint contributes to a broader investigation that reveals a pattern of fraud targeting elderly and immigrant residents in several neighborhoods. Maria's willingness to report the fraud and cooperate with the investigation helps protect other potential victims while supporting prosecution efforts against the fraudulent business operation. The fraud investigation demonstrates Maria's continued community responsibility and trust in law enforcement's ability to address criminal activity that threatens neighborhood residents. Her detailed complaint provides investigators with information about the perpetrator's methods and targets, helping them identify other victims and build a strong case for prosecution. The investigation results in multiple arrests and restitution for victims who lost money to the fraudulent scheme. The Martinez family's youngest child, Isabella, first appears in police records in 2017 at age 14 as a participant in a youth program that partners police officers with students to provide mentoring and educational opportunities. The program documentation shows Isabella's positive engagement with law enforcement through organized activities that build trust and understanding between young people and police officers. Her participation reflects the family's overall positive relationship with law enforcement and commitment to community engagement. Isabella's involvement in the youth program includes participation in community service projects, educational workshops about legal rights and responsibilities, and social activities that allow young people to interact with police officers in non-enforcement contexts. The program records document her growth in leadership skills and community awareness, showing how positive police interactions during adolescence can shape attitudes toward law enforcement and civic responsibility. In 2018, Carlos Martinez appears in records as the complainant in a workplace theft case where tools were stolen from his construction company's job site. His complaint provides detailed information about security measures at the site, employee access procedures, and the specific tools that were taken. The investigation reveals that the theft was committed by a former employee who had been terminated for poor performance and sought revenge against the company. Carlos's handling of the workplace theft demonstrates his professional maturity and understanding of proper procedures for reporting crimes and cooperating with investigations. His complaint includes photographs of the crime scene, lists of stolen items with serial numbers, and contact information for potential witnesses among his co-workers. The thorough documentation he provides helps investigators quickly identify and arrest the perpetrator while recovering most of the stolen tools. The pattern of Martinez family interactions with law enforcement over 24 years reveals a trajectory of increasing community, engagement, and mutual respect between the family and police department, beginning with minor traffic violations and progressing through witness cooperation, victim reporting, and volunteer service. The family's record demonstrates how positive police interactions can build lasting relationships that benefit both community safety and police effectiveness. Roberto's evolution from traffic violator to community volunteer shows how individuals can grow in their understanding of civic responsibility and law enforcement's role in maintaining community safety. His consistent cooperation with investigations and willingness to serve on community committees reflects the community partnerships that make police work more effective, while building trust between residents and officers. Maria's experiences as both witness and victim demonstrate how crime impacts community members and how law enforcement responses can either build or damage relationships with the people they serve. Her continued willingness to report crimes and cooperate with investigations reflects confidence in police effectiveness and fair treatment that encourages community participation in crime prevention efforts. The younger generation of the Martinez family shows how positive early interactions with law enforcement can shape lifelong attitudes toward police and community responsibility. Carlos's progression from juvenile citations to security clearance holder demonstrates the importance of handling youthful mistakes in ways that allow for growth and rehabilitation rather than creating permanent barriers to success. Isabella's participation in police youth programs represents the next generation's relationship with law enforcement, built on educational and mentoring activities rather than enforcement contacts. Her positive engagement with police officers through structured programs creates foundations for community, cooperation, and mutual respect that will influence her future interactions with law enforcement. The Martinez family files illustrate how police records serve not just as documentation of individual incidents, but as chronicles of community life that reveal patterns of neighborhood change, family development, and the complex relationships between residents and law enforcement. Each entry in the family's record represents a moment in time when their lives intersected with the justice system, creating a historical record that tells the larger story of how communities and police departments work together to maintain safety and order. As Detective Chun reviews the accumulated records, she reflects on how family names in police files represent not just criminal justice statistics, but human stories of growth, community engagement, and the ongoing process of building relationships between law enforcement and the people they serve. The Martinez family's record demonstrates how positive police interactions can compound over time, creating foundations of trust and cooperation that benefit both individual families and entire communities. The cycle of documentation draws to its quiet conclusion in the final archive room, where completed cases rest in permanent storage. Their investigations finished, their legal proceedings concluded, and their paperwork bearing the official stamps and signatures that mark the end of active police work. Detective Lavra Bennett walks through these final corridors in the pre-dawn hours, surrounded by thousands of closed files that represent the successful completion of the justice process. Each folder containing not just the documentation of crimes and investigations, but the resolution that brings closure to victims, accountability to perpetrators, and peace to communities affected by criminal activity. Case number 201908834 sits in its designated place on the shelf. Its manila folder slightly thicker than those around it due to the complexity of the fraud investigation it documents. The case began 18 months ago with a single complaint about suspicious financial activity and grew to encompass a multi-state conspiracy involving dozens of victims and several perpetrators. The final folder contains the complete documentation of the investigation, from initial complaint through trial proceedings to the sentencing that concluded legal action and the restitution orders that provided compensation to victims. Fraud case folder bears multiple stamps indicating the various stages of completion, beginning with the investigative closure stamp that marked the end of active police work when arrests were made and evidence was turned over to prosecutors. Additional stamps document the progression through court proceedings, including indictment, plea negotiations, trial preparation, and final disposition. Each stamp bears a date and signature, creating a chronological record of how the case moved through the justice system from initial complaint to final resolution. The restitution documentation within the fraud case file shows how financial crimes require ongoing administrative work even after criminal proceedings conclude. Victims received partial compensation through seized assets and garnished wages, with payment schedules extending over several years as convicted defendants fulfill their obligations to those they harmed. The restitution tracking forms document each payment made and received, ensuring that victims recover as much as possible of their losses while defendants meet their legal obligations. Victim impact statements included in the fraud case file reveal the human consequences of financial crimes, describing not just monetary losses but emotional distress, damaged credit, and family hardships that resulted from the defendant's criminal activity. These statements provide context for sentencing decisions, while documenting the broader effects of crime that extend beyond simple financial calculations. The careful preservation of these statements ensures that victims' voices remain part of the permanent record. Adjacent to the fraud case sits a burglary investigation that concluded with the recovery of stolen property and successful prosecution of the perpetrator. The case file documents the methodical police work that led from initial crime scene processing through witness interviews to suspect identification and arrest. The final entries in the file describe the property return process, where recovered items were returned to their owners after serving as evidence. During trial proceedings, the burglary case closure documentation includes photographs of property being returned to victims, their signatures acknowledging receipt of recovered items, and case closure reports that summarize the investigation's success in both solving the crime and recovering stolen goods. The administrative closure process ensures that all evidence is properly disposed of or returned, that victims receive their property back, and that case files are complete for permanent storage and potential future. Reference. A domestic violence case from 2 years ago shows how some investigations conclude not with prosecution but with successful intervention and family rehabilitation. The case file documents initial emergency response to a domestic disturbance, followed by safety planning, restraining order proceedings, and referrals to counseling and support services. The case closure report indicates that criminal charges were eventually dropped when the victim chose not to pursue prosecution, but that family services intervention successfully addressed the underlying issues that led to the domestic violence incident. The domestic violence case includes follow-up reports documenting continued monitoring of the family situation, compliance with counseling requirements, and the eventual determination that the risk of future violence had been adequately addressed through intervention services. The case closure reflects the complex nature of domestic violence cases, where traditional criminal prosecution may be less effective than comprehensive intervention programs that address root causes of family conflict. Service of Process documentation fills several files, representing the administrative conclusion of cases where police officers delivered legal papers, including subpoenas, court orders, and civil judgments. These files contain proof of service forms signed by recipients, return receipts from certified mail delivery, and affidavits of service that provide legal documentation of proper notification procedures. The careful documentation ensures that due process requirements are met while protecting the rights of all parties involved in legal proceedings. The process service files demonstrate the civil law enforcement responsibilities that occupy significant portions of police department resources, as officers deliver court papers and enforce civil judgments throughout their jurisdictions. The administrative closure of these cases requires careful documentation to ensure legal compliance while maintaining efficient case management systems that track hundreds of service requests each month. Evidence disposal documentation occupies several shelves, containing records of how physical evidence was handled after cases concluded and legal retention periods expired. The disposal files document the destruction of drugs, the return of weapons to lawful owners, and the donation of unclaimed property to charitable organizations according to established legal procedures. Each disposal action requires multiple signatures and supervisory approval to ensure proper handling of evidence and compliance with legal requirements. The evidence disposal process includes environmental considerations for hazardous materials, security measures for dangerous items, and chain of custody documentation that tracks evidence from initial collection through final disposal. The disposal files provide complete accountability for every piece of evidence collected during investigations, ensuring that nothing is lost or mishandled during the storage and disposal process. Traffic accident investigations fill multiple sections of the final archives, their closure documentation reflecting the administrative completion of collision reports, insurance notifications, and traffic citation proceedings. Most traffic cases conclude with simple administrative closure once reports are filed and any citations are resolved through court proceedings or fine payments. The traffic case files demonstrate the volume of routine police work that requires careful documentation despite its apparently minor nature. Complex traffic accident investigations may require months of work, including accident reconstruction, expert testimony, and coordination with insurance investigators before reaching closure. The final documentation in these cases includes technical reports, expert witness statements, and court proceedings that determine fault and liability for serious accidents. The closure documentation ensures that all investigative work is properly recorded, and that legal proceedings are fully supported by police evidence and testimony. Missing person cases require special closure procedures depending on whether individuals are located alive, found deceased, or remain missing despite extensive investigation efforts. Located person files document the circumstances of recovery, medical examinations if needed, and reunification with family members. The closure documentation includes welfare checks, determination that no criminal activity occurred, and administrative closure when individuals are safely returned to their families. Found deceased files contain extensive documentation, including autopsy results, death scene investigation reports, and determination of cause and manner of death. These cases may close as natural deaths, accidents, suicides, or homicides, depending on investigation results. The closure documentation ensures that all investigative steps were completed and that appropriate notifications were made to family members and other agencies. Cold case files that remain unsolved receive periodic review and eventual administrative closure when all investigative leads have been exhausted and no new evidence emerges. The closure documentation includes summaries of investigative efforts, lists of evidence that remains available for future analysis, and notifications to family members about case status. These cases remain technically open but are transferred to an active status with provisions for reactivation if new evidence emerges. The cold case closure process acknowledges the reality that some crimes cannot be solved despite thorough investigation efforts, while maintaining hope that future advances in forensic science or new witness information might eventually provide answers. The administrative closure documentation ensures that cases are properly managed, while resources are directed toward investigations where success remains possible. Financial crime investigations often conclude with complex restitution and asset recovery proceedings that extend long after criminal prosecutions end. The closure documentation tracks recovered assets, victim compensation payments, and ongoing efforts to collect additional restitution from convicted defendants. These cases demonstrate how criminal justice proceedings continue affecting both victims and defendants long after trials conclude and sentences are imposed. Asset forfeiture proceedings may accompany financial crime investigations, requiring additional documentation about seized property. Legal proceedings to establish government ownership and eventual disposal of forfeited assets. The forfeiture documentation ensures compliance with constitutional requirements while providing resources that support ongoing law enforcement operations. Drug investigation closures include documentation of substance destruction, informant payments, and coordination with federal agencies that may pursue additional charges based on local investigations. The closure documentation protects informant identities while ensuring accountability for government funds used during investigations. Drug cases often involve multiple agencies and jurisdictions, requiring careful coordination during closure procedures. The drug case files include documentation of treatment referrals for defendants whose criminal behavior stems from addiction issues, reflecting the growing recognition that addiction treatment may be more effective than simple punishment in addressing drug-related crime. The closure documentation tracks defendants' progress through treatment programs and their compliance with court-ordered rehabilitation requirements. Juvenile case closures require special procedures that protect the confidentiality of young offenders while documenting successful completion of court-ordered requirements, including community service, counseling, and restitution payments. The juvenile closure files demonstrate the rehabilitative focus of juvenile justice proceedings, with emphasis on education and behavioral change rather than punishment. The juvenile files include documentation of family involvement in rehabilitation efforts, school cooperation in addressing behavioral issues, and community service projects that provide positive outlets for young people who have made mistakes. The closure documentation tracks successful completion of requirements while maintaining confidentiality protections that allow young people to move forward without permanent criminal records. Administrative hearings and internal affairs. Investigations conclude with documentation that ensures accountability within police departments while protecting the rights of officers who are subject to investigation. The closure files document investigation findings, disciplinary actions if appropriate, and appeals processes that ensure fair treatment of department personnel. These cases demonstrate the commitment to professional standards that characterizes modern law enforcement. Internal affairs closures may result in exoneration of officers, disciplinary actions, additional training requirements, or termination depending on investigation findings. The closure documentation ensures that appropriate actions are taken while maintaining personnel records that protect both individual rights and departmental integrity. Training documentation fills numerous files, representing the ongoing professional development requirements that ensure officers maintain current knowledge of legal procedures, investigative techniques, and community relations practices. The training files document completion of required courses, continuing education credits, and specialized certifications that enhance officer capabilities and department effectiveness. The training closure files demonstrate the significant investment that law enforcement agencies make in professional development, recognizing that effective police work requires constant learning and adaptation to changing legal requirements, technological advances, and community expectations. The documentation ensures that training requirements are met while tracking individual, officer development, and departmental training needs. Equipment maintenance and replacement files document the life cycle of police equipment from initial purchase through maintenance and eventual disposal or replacement. The equipment files ensure accountability for government resources while maintaining operational readiness of vehicles, communications equipment, and specialized investigative tools. The closure documentation tracks equipment performance and identifies replacement needs that support effective police operations. Policy development files document the creation and revision of departmental procedures that guide officer actions and ensure compliance with legal requirements and professional standards. The policy files include research supporting policy decisions, public input on proposed changes, and implementation procedures that ensure consistent application of new requirements. The closure documentation ensures that policies are properly developed and effectively implemented. Community relations files document police participation in community events, public education programs, and partnership initiatives that build positive relationships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. The closure documentation tracks program effectiveness and community feedback that guides future outreach efforts. These files demonstrate the commitment to community policing that characterizes modern law enforcement. As Detective Bennett completes her review of the final archives, she reflects on the endless cycle of documentation that transforms active investigations into historical records. Each closed case representing the completion of justice processes that protect community safety while respecting individual rights. The quiet rows of completed files demonstrate the accumulated work of countless officers, investigators, and support personnel who contribute to the complex process of maintaining law and order in democratic society. The final archives represent more than simple storage of old paperwork. They constitute the institutional memory of law enforcement agencies and the communities they serve. Each closed case file documents not just individual crimes and investigations, but the ongoing evolution of police practices, legal procedures, and community standards that define civilized society's response to criminal behavior. The careful preservation of these closed cases ensures that future researchers, legal professionals, and policymakers will have access to the documented experience of previous generations who face similar challenges in maintaining community safety while protecting individual rights. The archives serve as both historical record and practical resource for understanding how effective law enforcement practices develop and evolve over time. In the quiet hours before dawn, surrounded by thousands of completed cases, Detective Bennett appreciates the significance of this final stage in the justice process. The closed files represent successful completion of the work that defines law enforcement, from initial crime reports through investigation, prosecution, and final resolution. Each stamp and signature marks not just administrative closure, but the achievement of justice that makes civilized society possible. The endless cycle continues as new cases begin investigation while others move toward closure, creating the constant flow of documentation that records human behavior and society's response to crime. The final archives stand ready to receive new additions while preserving the accumulated wisdom of past experience, ensuring that the institutional knowledge gained through decades of police work remains available to guide future efforts to maintain community safety and uphold the rule of law that protects both individual rights and collective security. The night fades gradually into dawn, and the final archives rest in peaceful silence. Their mission accomplished, their stories preserved, Their contribution to justice documented for future generations who will continue the endless work of maintaining order, protecting the innocent, and ensuring that law serves justice in democratic society.